Good evening to all and happy Pride Month from all of us here on the broadcast. Love is love, and I'm telling you, we are going to love this day one of the second knockout Chinese contenders stage. And we got to see the top four teams now fighting against one another to see where they're going to end up, solidifying their spot going into the playoffs later this month. I am your caster, Rich Rad, here with the most amazing Moxie. I get the chance to be with you today, and I'm really excited for day one, Moxie.
I'm really excited. We don't normally get to cast together,
I
so it's
know.
actually really fun to get to be opposite you in the chat today.
I know. And honestly, for those of you that are probably sitting there and wondering, why is a boomer like me next to a charming Moxie instead of your usual blonde haired, blue eyed, clean shaven, dashing door? Well, it's because he's unable to be with us because, and I quote, dropped his prized cheese grater down the throat. So I'm just going to honestly say that I searched out the prized cheese grater that caused him to be in such a place and basically give it its just rewards. So, um, we're going to move on then, and we're going to get this underway as we're going to take a look at the bracket today, Moxie, and see exactly what type of matches we have in store for today.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute banger of a match to kick things off. It's going to be Bilibili Gaming, current first seed, versus first Fabulous Fighter. And something we should note as well, Rich, is that it's not everything as usual in the Chinese contenders region, is it? A couple of heroes have been put in the naughty corner.
I know we have the hero pools being a part of the Chinese region. Have not seen it in any other sector, specifically outside of OWL. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic going into this. And the two key words that have come to us, not only between you and myself, but all of us other casters for this region, has said the ability to use momentum going through this week, and then also adaptation because of this hero pool.
Yeah, adaptation is going to be absolute key for all of these teams purely because one of the heroes that got banned was one of the most used heroes in the region. It's Tracer, Sombra Zen, and Rhine. Most notably, that Tracer. A lot of teams really relied on their DPS to come in absolutely clutch and be that very self-reliant force. You don't need to dip in a lot of resources from the side of the rest of the team. Instead, you can still find so much value. But we'll be taking a look at the schedule in just a second.
Yes, indeed. And you can see that first game will be First Fabulous Fighters versus Bilibili Gaming, which is one that we're quite excited for. But again, even more so on the second match for today, Team Chaser versus T1W. And those two are ones that we're really going to want to look into, especially because when we have our predictions being a little bit more favored for the first game coming up. But the second game is where we can actually see who's going to start pulling ahead. Myself, Kenobi, and Moxie right now at the 6 count for score. And it's either going to be Moxie taking it all after today, or Kenobi and myself finding ourselves tied at the first, believing because, that Team Chaser is, you talked about it. You had said that it's got the assets, the resources, and that they should look to take this, which I don't disagree with you, Moxie.
Yeah, absolutely. Although the one little problem with that is Team Chaser have already played T1W, and T1W won. Sure, it went to 5 mouse, but
Mhm.
T1W still came out on top. So a lot of these casters going with that favored winner coming back through. But I think Team Chaser might have it in the bag, especially with those resources. But we'll touch on that a little bit later when it comes to that actual matchup, because we get to take a little bit of a look at Bilibili Gaming's roster, who will be up against First Fabulous Fighter, which I think is going to be a fun one to watch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with Bilibili, there is a lot of really great highlights when it comes to this. They have been able to adapt very well into this hero pool. One of the key factors that we've been looking at is just really their adaptation and ability to, change their compositions when necessary to really be a competitor in this. And that's something that I'm really hoping that First Fabulous Fighters going against them as we take a look at the roster who's going to start will be able to understand and adapt how to come at this team of Bilibili because First Fabulous Fighters, I would honestly say that right now they're gonna have a tough time going into this just because of the way that they've been trying to transition into this hero pool and seeing what strengths they can take from the previous weeks that we've seen and bring it into this knockout stage.
Yeah, especially because we already have like Billy coming in with a very strong tank lineup. 800 Winston is absolutely stellar. So for first Fabulous Fighter, when you take away the Tracer, when you take away the Sombra, a lot of it is now actually going to be focused on that tank lineup. Mocker and Raven, will they be able to keep up with 800?
I mean, it's a tall order because I mean they've been doing so well in going into this. We are going to have Karma coming out onto this. We've seen a lot of adjustment with that support lineup in the previous weeks before going into the knockout, trying to rotate in because again you've lost the Zenyatta. What we've seen a lot is the synergy between the Brigitte along with the Ana. We've also seen a lot of the dynamics just to continue fueling that front tank line to try and go head to head here. But also one of the things we noticed is that first Fabulous Fighters was playing a lot more of that type of dive-centric composition and being a little bit outmatched in certain conditions, which is something that we're looking to possibly have change going into this now that we're in the knockout phase and going against a team like Bilibili.
Yeah, the thing is, dive, while a really popular composition, there's an awful lot of counters to it. But control, as always, is going to be up first, and control, as always, is probably one of, if not the strongest map to run that dive, simply because of the stall potential that it allows. You don't even necessarily need to be winning the fight as long as you're actually in possession of the point while it's going on.
Yeah, and as we go into this first map of Control, we talk a little bit about, I mean, even amongst us as casters, just to really understand that First Fabulous Fighters is really trying to basically shift the waves a little because the three teams that we have, BLG along with T1W and Team Chaser, that, they're kind of the more renowned dominant factors here. And First Fabulous Fighters really has to elevate themselves to try and create a ripple effect to put them a little bit, on their back foot, feeling a type of competitive edge that makes them feel uneasy when going against them versus at this point just trying to also just outright take the victory. And you can also see in the bottom left two of those out of rotation heroes if you did not hear it earlier in the beginning of the broadcast.
I love as well that First Fabulous Fighter just going straight for that counter dive. They know exactly what Bilibili are going to be offering up, the full dive. And so what First Fabulous Fighter do, every single one of their players is meant to counter it. You can run away on the soldier, you can flashbang on the Kree. It's going to be so hard for Bilibili to actually pin these players down.
See now, got Mocha trying to just digress back after getting a little bit of early engagement. You've got Bees also having to be extremely careful of this rotation. Frontline, beautiful Bionade coming out on the front of Bilibili. Great responsiveness by First Fabulous Fighters, and that honestly will completely shift the tides with that backline flank.
I mean, look even at where they took the fight to Bilibili. It's in a place with a ceiling. So the dive can't properly come through. It's actually really good heads-up game sense to acknowledge that if you play around on that point, you're going to get dived by the Winston. The D.Va is going to be able to move around with the Vistas in full, but the second that you actually take it to a little bit more of a cramped up space, that's when all of that mobility gets completely swept by the wayside.
And you can see it immediately in that doorway. That really tight, narrow choke point is something that was extremely challenging to have to, recover from. And when you have a Bionade on both tanks, just by itself, that's rough. And then you've got a third in there. I mean, that's something we've seen so consistently from a lot of these Ana players from the region, that if you can land more than two, it's basically game over if there's a great follow-up like that.
And for Bilibili as well, they're trying to build up to these ultimates, but First Fabulous Fighter are just not giving the dive the space to actually properly come through. So 800 isn't getting anywhere near the amount of cleave that the Winston wants to build up to the primal, and even when you have the primal, you're not in possession of the point, so all of the stall potential we talked about is completely gone.
Ooh, but there's a couple of early picks here, and you've gotten rid of Kama on that Brigitte, so there's no crown control. You lose a little bit of that engagement potential with the Inspire, and that's going to be a swift take back here from Bilibili.
And this is the really scary aspect for First Fabulous Fighter, because now the stall potential is the one possessing the point. They're coming in with a Dead Eye, and that's going to get them a little bit of zoning potential, sure, but they don't really have an immediate press to win button to stop Bilibili from just keeping themselves alive on that point until they equalize the score.
And we can see Alpha E going to be playing again. This Echo does go down. That was something we were really focusing on. How is Alpha E going to transition without that Tracer play? V's going to now continue to press forward, getting a lot of damage onto the D.Va, having to digress back. Kodomo needs to be very cautious of that as this flanking rotation comes through. So many of First Fabulous Fighters with the Tactical Visor going to be tossed into this by Top Dragon, who is actually doing a very stellar job zoning most of Bilibili back. The Primal Rage from 800 really isn't going to get too much value as the pickup comes through by Bees, and that should be a swap now with Bees just cleaning up the remainder of the trash.
Yeah, similar to how they put the dive into that side room, Market actually completely stints Bilibili's movement, especially 800's Primal Rage, because the Hammer Mines came down, so you didn't have the mobility that the Winston really wanted to get crumped up. You get immediately chunked down, and it's allowed V so much ult percentage already, almost another die going to be given up. And Bilibili, they don't have the Sidebar yet. Even if Hyunjae gets it online, if you have a nano boosted Zarya and everyone gets caught in it, that's not going to save you for long.
See that side angle. Going to potentially go up towards that elevator. Does look to engage it, trying to get some value as you've got the rally coming through by First Fabulous Fighters to give some assistance. Coalescence, but you're going to drop down here with the Irony. Not going to get nearly as much assistance. Has to try and change their trajectory with 800 getting fueled by the health and this great responsiveness despite falling from that high ground position. Bilibili recovers and is managing to take this away from FFF.
That's perfect response as well. As soon as the grab comes out, that actually initiates Pineapple into using the Death Loss and making sure that Riven is not going to be there with the Zarya charge or the Nano's potential to just immediately chunk everyone down. And it ensures that Hyunjay is able to keep the sound barrier. So they still have that stall potential. They can equalize FFF's percentage as long as the fight just keeps rolling.
Bit of harassment to the side. Alpha just trying to get some decent sticky bombs in the back there to generate that ult as quickly as possible, and already surpassing that 60% marker is leading into possibly this final fight territory. Tactical Visor going to come out by Top Dragon, looking to flee to the side, but Pineapple gets the takedown as a sound barrier secures stability for Bilibili, with Pineapple just drawing back, looking to sustain, waiting for this possible re-engage because the early advantage now is no longer there for First Fabulous Fighters. Even 5 for 5, Riven is going to continue to pump out some serious damage, but it's still not in favor of First Fabulous Fighters yet. Bilibili managing to hold on. Coalescence dropped into this, and this is a really scrappy fight in this final moments.
But it's stall. It's all coming from Bilibili. The Coalescence, the Primal, every single little bit of it is all geared towards keeping the fight going, so they keep this percentage ticking up.
Top Dragon now on the point, attempting to contest, getting into the overtime position as you've got Kama with the rally, holding on to it for the time being until they can look for a more favorable opportunity to switch this back. They'd like to hold on to it, but they're actually going to use it going into this because they've got a stack's worth to swap this. The energy is high. Riven's going to keep this grab to make sure that they can carry it over into the next fight. And it's going to be pretty stellar to have at least this coming online and being sustained for the final fight.
I mean, not only are you going to have the grab, but you're going to be able to have Marcus synergize with it and drop the hammer mines over it. And even if you have a support ultimate, nothing is going to be able to say, Billy, as they're stalling Pineapple is coming into final fight, and Bilibili still can't actually get in, even though they've got the Lucio speed, because the Reaper went down so late.
Pile drive into a sleep dart, just not allowing any escape for Bilibili. And now entering into this, they've got the numbers advantage for First Fabulous Fighters, but the regroup will come through soon. The duplicate onto the Zarya to generate some grab quickly, along with getting some decent coverage with those photon barriers to try and give some assistance, as you do now have that return grab coming through to try and lock down FFF. They actually escape most of it. Kama gets the takedown onto Pineapple, but it's an even trade for the Reaper. Still trying to move on to this point with V's looking for the data to potentially zone the flashbang, gets the stun very low. Supports are killing it right now to keep V's alive, with also the nano boost committed. That instance of a ultimate usage from BLX ultimately switches that towards the end.
And V's as well is just praying for that Tiva mech to pull apart, because you could see he was itching to pull the Deadeye, but he did not want to get gulped away by the defense matrix. And so all of FFF, all of the supports just keep piling the resources, because Bilibili know if Kodomo's mech goes down and V's is still alive, that is fight over. FFF, absolute huge props to the support lineup. They were absolutely majestic in that one, as we will move over to the side of University, and that means you can still run that dive, you can still have the stall potential, but it also ushers in the potential for what we're seeing FFF lock in, the double shields, and this is going to make the dive a little bit harder to connect, purely because of all of the crowd control offered up.
Doors open, entering on to this University map. Quick transition there with the Symmetra as per usual, as the high ground's going to be looked to be obtained by Bilibili. With actually, Pineapple going to go for a swap here, not going to want to stick onto the McCree and go onto the Hanzo this time instead.
I mean, it makes sense. You can use the Soul Marrow to try and just bash away these shields from FFF, because Irony can't really do anything to keep 800 alive unless the Winston's in the air, because you're behind double layered shields.
Now with V is looking to still get some decent vision around the backside here. Going to try and engage and force out the defense matrix, as the point presence should favor First Fabulous Fighters on this cross side. Looking for a position now for Pineapple to try and get some damage onto these shields, again with Mocha and Riven having that double shield composition. And it's just the slow, methodical play. It will go in favor of First Fabulous Fighters, and now the stall is going to have to come through.
Yeah, but Bilibili are just doing what you see every dive composition do. 800 goes in, takes a little bit of damage, gets back, and look at Irony's ult charge. Already got the nano boost, and that's when the proper attack can come through.
There is a little gap between that frontline shield from Riven and just finds the angle onto the Lucio. You now have this follow through from 800 getting some serious damage onto the back line, instantly cleaning up. Alpha Yi just getting a great double kill to follow up as well with the assistance of the sticky bombs, and just even the melee here on BLX just cleaning it up.
Yeah, really good heads-up play coming from Bilibili. They know if 800 dives in deep and you don't have that Nana boost to instantly get an escape route, that Winston is not going to be able to jump back to the Ana. So they give up 21%, and now they're in control of the point. They've got the ultimates, and they can just keep stalling until they equalize that and more.
That was a cheeky play coming out by Pineapple. Almost gets the takedown onto V's to just stagger this out a little bit more. But now surpassing the percentage from FFF. You do have the Dragon Strike committed into this. Honestly, the amplification matrix from BLX not really in the best of position. Doesn't get maximum value here. More so allowing them to push in through the doorways to at least find a better positioning as V's gets overwhelmed from the side. Had the focus onto the back line for Pineapple, but 800 comes in swiftly from overhead to take him down. And now Alpha Yi gonna be able to just pepper in that damage overhead just behind the shields. Not really being too heavily contested since V's was down and can just get free damage.
And can hold on to the duplication as well. But Top Dragon, meanwhile, has actually been able to get the D.Va mech out of the way. V's is trying to find any sort of position for that Deadeye. Will finally be able to catch the Echo, but the duplication comes through just in time. Alfie goes for the Sigma and is able to shield it.
Pineapple, though, still being a prime candidate here to potentially swap this over, getting a lot of value, but the chase from Riven around the outside barely survives for a moment and then instantly taken down on the just drop to the mainland as you've got 70% still continuing to climb. This will be a swap over, and there's still a couple of advantages, though, going into this for First Fabulous Fighters with their economy.
They need to get these ultimates upline and fast because Bilibili don't really have any escape route. They're not running the Batiste, so they don't have Immortality Field, which means Riven on this Sigma should be able to come in absolutely clutch with these fluxes. But he's just not being given the space. The dive is constantly hounding the Sigma, not allowing him to charge that one up, and so instead, FFF is always on the back foot of the ultimate charge.
He's trying to take that side position with the Echo Mercy composition, looking to try and get some intel on where First Fabulous Fighters is going to enter in and be on the positioning as BLG looks for an opportunity to go around the backside. 800 again, still playing cautiously as we've seen consistently because they're in a position of where if they manage to take this, they can ultimately finish it here. Before getting back in is down on the high ground. You do have the backline from Top Dragon going for the supports and also Pineapple, but a sound barrier also going to be committed here. First Fabulous Fighters just putting a lot into this to sustain and just get as much percentage as possible.
Well, that Reaper showing up has also forced 800 to kill back in for the support, so suddenly FFF don't have a Winston diving into the front rank.
Pineapple still looking for that side angle, trying to find out where V's is as the Deadeye comes through for zoning. Can't find anything over the walls, but there's still a lot of value with Top Dragon taking advantage of the movement from that Deadeye as Riven tries to get a nice shield to recover, gets the stun as well, but you still have an escaping Pineapple over the wall vaulting, but is going to be surrounded by 3 for a cleanup. And this actually is going to be First Fabulous Fighters in the long haul holding on to it, but it's still going to be an overtime though for Bilibili.
Yeah, still coming out, 800 popping the Primal Rage. Irony does have the Nano boost. I'm just actually going to go onto the Lucio so you can try and get the Ana in as quick as possible, because if you keep capturing this point, you will hit ultimates, and FFF don't really have a lot of theirs left.
Irony enters in with the Nano boost onto, Alpha Yi gonna try and get that Doomfist play as well. Looking for the flank. Alpha Yi does have a chance to find some value. The Meteor Strike not gonna come up in time. So it will be some recovery now. Focusing beam onto the Doomfist in the back. Top Dragon goes down. Pineapple recovers as well. It's switched back, but there's still few here from First Fabulous Fighters to contest.
Yeah, they're still trying to contest this, force Bilibili to go for these kills, but what you're doing is allowing Alfie to get so much poke pressure coming through on this Echo, and the rest of the team can come in and clean up the kills. FFF needed to pull back out. They've got the Lucio. They could have gone for a safe engage, but unfortunately, they've just allowed Bilibili to come into the final fight.
Yep, Alpha Yi gets a stacked amount of damage as well, forcing that Wrecking Ball play from Mocha back, continuing to try and get him stuck into the corner. There's the focusing beam with the assistance of Irony, and that's just going to be Bilibili able to take this if they can clean up the last few. There's still a stall potential, but this is just dominoes in a glorious mosaic on the floor, and that should just be a sound barrier coming out in the end, trying to buy some time, but Bilibili in the grand scale of this has done a stellar job to bring this into a round 3.
Yeah, FFF unfortunately don't have the Hammer Mines to really stunt Bilibili's movement at the moment. Bilibili have far more ultimates because they've got so much poke damage as FFF have tried to come into this point. And now you can see Alfie's just on an absolute tear. He's forced into retreat. There's nothing to try and stop this Echo outside of the D.Va. And Alfie's going to say, okay, you want to stop me? I'll take you on with your own mech.
I mean, just grab on, hold on, and go for the ride. Because, I mean, this is still a worthwhile attempt coming out from First Fabulous Fighters. But, I mean, all in all, once there is enough off the point, even with a mech kill coming in from Alpha Yi with Riven. So, you know, there's just getting that little cherry on top.
I mean, you know, everyone's looking for it. We know it's possible. The free K-neck kill.
Oh, let's not
Can
even
they
talk
top
about
it?
that. That's still an owl highlight to this day until we see a fourth with that mech kill.
Well, I'm just waiting for the day that we get a full 6. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. But we are going to be starting to see this next map popping up. And, you know, this one is all about grabbing the high ground. And for Bilibili to still be running this dive, that's when it's really going to flourish. It's a little bit harder to pull off University, especially when we've seen FFF demonstrate that they know to pull these fights in to force the dive away. FFF, if they want to get this composition to work, there's a reason they're still running that Lucio. They need to hit that high ground and they need to hit it fast.
As they swiftly move to this point, you're going to have the Mocha Orisa, which I'm a very big fan of, as all of you have probably seen the back of my recording area. Now, this consistent damage coming out from Top Dragon around the backside. Alpha Yi has to be extremely careful, though. A lot of focus fire from these. And looking to peek around the corner, does escape the grasp of that 6-shooter. And just, again, waiting methodically going into this. Bilibili looking to take it first, but there's finally some contention as they drop down below Mox.
I mean, they're just going. They're making sure that they've still got a little bit of pressure on the point. They've got V set up in this high ground, so Alfie can't really get as much damage. And the second that the dive comes through, they retreat back in, knowing that 800 really can't follow. They're slowly building up ult percentage. Bilek's about to hit that amplification matrix, and they're coming in for the kills because Bilibili, the dive to get it. Oh, V!
I mean,
beautiful job. You know, sometimes you sacrifice yourself for the greater good.
You know, I mean, the Immortality Fuel was beautifully placed to keep V's alive, gets the double, thinks that they're safe, dropping down to the lower segment, finds that they are just past the rail and goes for a swim. But they still get this point first. Like you said, sacrifice while worth it, and they're going to be able to sustain.
And even more importantly, you didn't lose Mocha, so you don't need to have the Lucio go for an escort to try and get the really slow moving pony back up onto the high ground.
Pony on the high ground with that shield and looking to try and get some damage just behind it with Alpha. He does find Top Dragon in the window. Not going to want to play too aggressively. V's in the center of that Immortality field. Does get taken out, though, by Kodomo quickly. There's a double Diva booster rockets coming from the back line. You're going to get the self-destruct toss into the corner just because of the D-Mech. Still a lot of damage. Looking for potentially the remech kill. Gets another one onto Riven. Just shooting for it. Top Dragon comes in with the death loss, and though to try and equalize here, it's still going to end up being First Fabulous Fighters maintaining this for quite a bit of time so that they can surpass that 50% marker as Bilibili gets the res and comes back on top.
Oh my goodness, Immortality Field actually coming out from BLX by just a little bit more percentage, but the foot finally comes through. And Bilibili will be in control of the point, and honestly, they had some beautiful kiting coming out. You can see 800 did not want to go into that small room when the McCree was up, so the rest of the team made sure the flashbang would be removed for the Winston to make it a little bit safe. And now it's going to be really hard for First Fabulous Fighter. They've got the Samurai, they may need to use it just to get an engagement to try and force Bilibili away, otherwise that Orisa is just going to be absolutely dead in the water.
You never want to be dead in the water, because you don't want to be fish in the water, or fish in a barrel. Well, ironic.
I mean, does Orisa float?
I mean, when you've got 4 legs, you think they could be fine. But, you know, when you've got 4 legs... Ooh, that was a nice stun, though, to almost get rid of Alpha Yi. As you now have Pineapple coming in with the Deadeye, trying to get a different angle. As 800 pops the Primal Rage, gets some damage. Juggling 3 in the corner, but has to escape. Health value's getting super low. And you're going to have this now going to... Wow, actually, okay. You know what? The recovery here from Bilibili. Stellar job to survive through that, despite FFF having a little bit of an advantage in that smaller room.
Well, I guess that answers the question of do Orisas fly. But, we get to see the Primal Rage coming up from 800. And again, the cleave damage so much because FFF are playing so close together. 800 just popped ultimate, and already you're 47% to the next. Like, that is when Winston is prime time to be the Monkey Man. And unfortunately for that Orisa, the more time that you're out of the fight, the harder it gets to come back into it. And you can see that Bilibili know this from the fact that we're seeing ultimates invested just to make sure that resources can't actually come to help the Orisa when you get separated from your supports.
Yeah, when you're separated like that, especially with how strategic Bilibili has been playing, it becomes so challenging. You can't allow those small weaknesses to be exploited, because if they are visible, it is going to be instantly recognized by a team like Bilibili and how well they've played, not only so far through this control map to kind of bring it back after losing that first round, and then also what we've seen weeks prior playing into this. And I also have to give a lot of credit to the composition and feeling comfortable with something that we've highlighted, and how, again, losing that 4 heroes and what type of changes are coming through. And the fact that they're utilizing this, you know, dive composition so thoroughly, and First Fabulous Fighters is trying to adapt with this Orisa, it's still being quite competitive.
V's is looking for a very competitive Deadeye. The team has made all of the space in the world, but Diva Bomb doesn't find anything, doesn't really even kite anyone in to the Deadeye. Alfie goes for the duplicate onto the Reaper, will be kept a little bit at base, so no Death Blossom going to be charged up.
Yeah, and maybe... No, there's not going to be enough time for it. Nope, Flashbang's going to come out, too, to just make sure that it does... Oh, but Kodomo, while we pay attention to the Reaper duplicate in the back, gets a great 2-kill with that self-destruct. Kodomo on this Diva really in the end of this, solidifying this round to go in favor of Bilibili, and that's going to be map 1 here to this first to 3.
Yeah, and already you can sort of see a common pattern, right? Bilibili, they won University because they just came in with more ultimates into that last fight. They win Gardens because they come into the last fight with more ultimates. You see the cycle come through. Since they hit 90%, they know all they have to do is keep First Fabulous Fighter from actually getting any sort of organized push coming through. So first the Diva Bomb, then the Deadeye. Everything you can do just cycled one after the other to make sure that FFF were just in no position to try and keep that point contested.
I mean, even when it came to this first round, too, the only reason why it was really starting to work against Kodomo is because the focus was to try and remove Kodomo from aggressing onto Vs. If you leave Vs alone, it's going to be a bad time for Bilibili, and that's something that they've been able to recognize because you saw the engagement coming through by 800 to try and find the value, or having the focus coming out from Alpha Yi and Pineapple to try and shut down that McCree play, which has been very successful for FFF.
And that's like sort of where you can as well trace the impact of the hero bans, right? Because normally it wouldn't really be the Diva trying to try to keep them in check. You would maybe hope for the Tracer to provide a little bit of that diversion, but it definitely feels like Kodomo is stepping into almost that third DPS slot, where you're just that constant gnat, that constant bother that FFF are always having to turn around and deal with. Instead of a Tracer, suddenly they're going to have to worry about the Diva mech and then the baby Diva that comes out of it.
I mean, unless you're on the opposing side and you have a mech to drop onto the baby Diva, then it's a different story. But yes, I mean, just the consistency that we're going to be having going into this, and then also talking about consistency, we're going to have a little bit of a change up to try and maybe make something a little bit more consistent for First Fabulous Fighters. We are actually going to see a substitute here from the support line, bringing in Clear. So she's going to be filling in this role. We've seen a lot of Ana play from Clear. That's very profound, at least from what we've seen in the weeks prior before going into this knockout phase, as from what we actually have intel is going to be entering into Junkertown as well.
I mean, you can definitely see as well why Clear would be coming in on that Ana, because if Kodomo was in the enemy's backline and being a pest to DPS, that Diva mech is not there with the defense matrix to try and gobble up those anti-nades that come the team's way.
Look, to get into this next one, I haven't seen Junkertown in quite a while, to be honest. It's nice to see it because it's something that we don't really see too much. We have a lot of the Watchpoint Gibraltar that's been very dominant, again, having that type of dive composition with the Diva and the Winston as we're entering into this. This is one of those maps too where, you know, it's a possibility of seeing such as like a Widowmaker. We've seen actually quite a bit of that going into these matches because of the hero pool, and seeing how useful that can be, because there's a lot of really vital sightlines onto Junkertown where you can take advantage of those one pick like wonders and just shut down engagements very quickly. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to come through, which actually we're going to be entering it in. Looking at the board, you at least see one for sure by Pineapple.
When Tracer and Sombra are away, the Widowmaker can play. And I mean, Zen too. You're not going to have to worry about the eternal shame of being a Widowmaker and getting slam dunked in the head by those Zen orbs. And it's definitely going to be something that Bilibili are going to be relying on. They're running this double shield, so Pineapple does have that safety blanket to be able to hide behind for this duel that will be coming up against V's. And if you ever want a Widowmaker duel, come on. What better map to have it than on Junkertown?
As we enter in onto this map, gonna get some early intel quickly with Alpha Yi with this Hanzo. And I mean, I like the pick between both Alpha Yi and Pineapple because they play this very well together. With the double shield composition, it's gonna give so much coverage, it's gonna make them feel safe. And, you know, with the synergy between both Irony and...
Oh. Is that a Genji? Is that a Genji without an Ana? So they're going for the blade, but they're going for it without the nano, knowing that that Transcendence is not going to be on the side of Bilibili to try and cut it short.
I mean, we've seen Genji as well, so it's not so surprising, but I definitely agree with the fact that there's no Ana, and BLX is going to come out with this Brig play. And again, Clear going to opt to go onto the Baptiste instead of the Ana, which, like we said, typically, ooh, barely skirting by, having the deflect for the follow-up arrows, but BLX has no way to dodge any of those.
Yeah, Top Dragon almost getting a haircut. BLX decides to hop into the chair instead, still dueling out the Hanzo though. And that does mean that those shields are nice and safe and snug, but now Alfie has actually sniffed out the Orisa and is looking for the source of them. Immortality Field comes out, but Maka was actually outside of it. And still we're seeing Top Dragon trying to find anything against Alfie. Finally gets the pick onto the Hanzo, but you've still got to worry about, there it is, the res. First Fabulous Fighter, they're not running the Mercy, so if one of them goes down, it's permanent, as opposed to Bilibili, who are relying on that res to skirt around the longer respawns.
I mean, there was so much committed to Alpha Yi on this Hanzo. Like, that was unbelievable, and it stalled for quite a bit of time there. But with the res, as you commented, it's going to allow it to get back into the engagement. Nice stun on a Top Dragon. Huge accretion comes through with a Dragon Strike as well, making sure that you divide and conquer. Irony gets a 2 pick up for themselves. And, I mean, honestly, Bilibili is playing this so well defensively.
First Fabulous Fighters, they're still sticking with this break. And the last I saw in that fight, BLX was actually using this shield solely for V to get a little bit more cover to try and find the picks, but the Widowmaker, for all of the resources FFF are putting on them, finally gets the pick onto the Hanzo, but it needs to be a little bit more.
Flux gonna come through now, rising. Kodomo, look, gonna get decent amount of damage. The accretion is immediately after, but does get knocked off the edge, so nobody can get the follow through and is top back up from the supports. Valkyrie gonna come through to give that assistance with a supercharger for damage boost, so you can focus on healing and damage simultaneously with Kodomo. Looking for the rise and fall in the back. Kinetic Grasp still mitigating quite a bit of damage on Riven, so there is still a beefy tank line for the time being, but still overwhelming and just rushing underneath this archway, taking quick advantage, and First Fabulous Fighters are just really in such a difficult position. The Dragon Blade needs to get value, but gets shut down. And that's just, something's got to give here to change compositions.
And unfortunately, because FFF had already retreated, they weren't able to cancel out the rest, so Alfie is back into the fight for next to nothing. And FFF, finally, we will see Top Dragon going over to the hands of BLX onto the Mercy, but there's only 1 minute left. You're swapping 2 of your players, you're walking into ultimates already charged up from Bilibili, and you're having to come in and take so much more poke damage already. You've got the supercharged soul, but all of Bilibili can just walk away and avoid the damage.
And V's no longer has the information to know exactly where they are, but still had it for quite some time. There's an early pickup onto 800. The Flux goes underneath, does actually get a takedown onto Kodomo, so in the last 45 seconds, they managed to turn the tide here and reach the checkpoint.
Yeah, that supercharger was huge. They should even be able to get a stagger onto Alfie. If Riven can get the
really? Okay.
Now you have to stop the res. Now you have to stop the res, kill the Mercy.
Oh no!
Please! We talked about it. The eternal shame, not having to worry about the sun. You still have to worry about that blaster. Those Mercy pistols, they do some serious damage. Is Bilibili? Aw. Is going over to the Genji. Has decided enough is enough. If the First Fabulous Fighter want to go for backline play, Bilibili will be more than happy to provide, and that Genji is going to be an absolute bane for Clear to deal with.
Not to mention, there's no Ana to boot with it. They are going to pull the same strat the First Fabulous Fighters did. Not going to get that that boosted blade, just a common vanilla. There's nothing wrong with vanilla. As you now see Top Dragon continuing to get some shots through that doorway. You have Alpha Yi, though, despite not having any sort of assistance, still getting quite a bit of value, uncontested at the moment, just shredding the back line, going for the quad!
Oh no.
V's! Oh, there's 4 V's for the 4th kill, so that all worked out mathematically.
And this is why FFF wants to run the Genji as well. This is why we saw Top Dragon trying to hound down the Hanzo. But you're actually seeing Alfie's going for the support. And because Clear is so busy trying to deal with the Genji, yeah, the Baptiste may be able to pick up a kill before she goes down, but that Immortality Field is so much more of a juicy pick to pull out from, especially when you have ultimates. This type of fight, even investing in a Dragon Strike, just to make sure that it's a little bit safer to move through the door, sets Mocker up to be able to hit Pineapple as well.
I mean, it did give a nice little divide between the composition of the team and also maintaining that high ground, but it's still going to be able to just overall be managed by a Bilibili, going now in for the Dragon Blade underneath, gets the takedown before the Immortality Field can give any kind of assistance. Top Dragon, again, looking for some shots, but having such a challenge because there's so many different things all around you. It's like you've got the dashing ninja, you've got the engagement from the tank line if necessary with the accretion, and then Pineapple just taking pop shots for free.
And that's why you don't really care about not having a nano boost, not having a supercharger. Fighting in that close of space, a Genji Blade is going to find value. Even if it's one pick, you can see that target priority is always on Clear. This support has a target painted on her back, and the Genji is not going to allow them to live.
We reach this 45-second remaining marker. Do or die to try and push this, and quite a distance still to cover. Pineapple takes down the support. Clear unable to just stay alive in this. V's does manage to get the takedown onto the Genji, and a Flux comes through from the side angle around the inner pillar. So Riven now is going to continue to dive on top of 800. That's at least going to be a clear away from the payload, pushing it further, but they're still not in the home stretch yet.
More importantly though, Bilibili are going to have to set up the sight lines. Pineapple is going to be coming into the fight rather than already set up for when it begins. So it's going to be a little bit harder for this Widowmaker to find that entrance pick, a little bit harder for Alfie to try and find clear before that amplification matrix is charged up. As you can see, V is just looking. Is anyone going to be able to contest? The Genji is there, but the Batista's down.
Oh my goodness, that's a little surprising. I figured they would have wanted to engage that a little faster to try and hold it. Now there's 1:30 on the clock. Not a huge amount of time, but still enough to get some momentum around this inner corner, especially if you can get some pickups. But V's going down will be able to slow the momentum, but Top Dragon up top looking to try and take advantage of this high ground.
I mean, it does mean that Bilibili can't be as aggressive as they want, but they know they need that high ground to be in control for their DPS to really have the space to be able to operate. Otherwise, you're going to be ducking into these side rooms, trying to avoid a hail of arrows that's going to allow Top Dragon to charge up to that next Dragon Strike and be absolutely brutal in cutting this team in half, making sure that the tanks just are not there for the supports. Pineapple's trying to find anything to stop First Fabulous Fighter's momentum right now, because you know how point C of this map's are rich. The second a defense wins a fight, it's so much harder for the attackers to come back.
Oh, the Flux doesn't get as many, looking to try and get them into sight lines of Pineapple, but Clear staying tried and true and focusing that back doorway on the opposing side of the center rotating wheel, gets the takedown, but Mocha also in return saying, no, 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 I will redeem Clear. Now, with this res coming through onto Pineapple, gets it back to a full 6, continuing as 25 seconds remain. This is desperation now.
First Fabulous Fighter just trying to find anything to stick on this payload. Alfie is just pressing this poor Widowmaker back. The Immortality Field is even coming out to save the Widowmaker's life. They want to keep this high ground. They're winning the fight on the payload because Alfie is completely distracted and has allowed Mocha to get these mines online. So it will continue to move, but Bilibili are going to be coming back in with a supercharger. And First Fabulous Fighter, because it's an overtime, they won't be able to move away from the damage. This Genji Blade, when it's connected to the Orisa, is going to be absolutely brutal.
I mean, the fact that they were able to get as many staggered picks here was boss for them, and now you're going to actually get that engagement in the backline just outside of the Immortality Field. Alpha Yi comes in big with Pineapple swapping to the 76, legs for the extra boost to get back onto the point. You fall short for FFF, but I mean, that's still quite an accomplishment in and of itself with how we've seen them previously in weeks that they were easily 3-0 by Bilibili.
And FFF, it was such a big difference from that team that we saw trying to run that Genji and the Brigitte on all the way back to that point A. It feels like a completely different map when they managed to start winning those fights on B and C. A little bit of a swap on that composition, and you could really see that this team flourished. The more space that they had to operate, the better they were off. But Bilibili now, they're going to be trying to take that space for themselves, and this gives me hope, right? First Fabulous Fighter were the strongest when they were in control of the space before the fight begins. Now they're going to be on the defense. All of that space that before they had to work so hard for to gain a little bit of an inch, it's not going to be gift wrapped on their doorstep.
No, definitely not gifted. And with how the defense went for Bilibili, I would not be surprised to see the same kind of dynamic, though I would definitely not like to see the Genji come out at the start for First Fabulous Fighters. They're just not able to get nearly as much value as what we've seen from Alpha Yi and how they've been able to play it. So at this point, I think that they invested too much time originally on the attacking side of it. If they want to bring that into that, that's an option, but you can't stick on it for that 3 minutes. Like, you're now swapping in the last minute. If that happened much sooner, that time bank could have been so much more extensive for them to use in these later portions to get those few final meters that we're just shy of.
I'm gonna counter that point ever so slightly and say I would be okay with seeing that Genji come out from First Fabulous Fighter again, as long as the target priority changed from going after the DPS to trying to hound Irony on this Batiste. Because
Agreed.
We saw what happened when Clear just kept going down and down and down. First Fabulous Fighter really didn't have any legs to be able to keep themselves into a fight, just because Brig on her own does not put enough healing out to keep something like an Orisa up and online. But Top Dragon is indeed going to be opting for that. Hanzo V is already trying to set up a little bit of a sneaky cheeky grapple, as we will see First Fabulous Fighter try to hold on to this defense. Going to be up against double shielding this time though. It's going to be a little bit harder to find an open shot for the cracks.
The doors will open to see that there is... Okay! Shields weren't up fast enough, and the res is forced out as Pineapple tries to find a nice side angle themselves, but going to be really, really challenging and not able to thread the needle there onto Top Dragon.
Pineapple just going for a little bit of grapple, trying to figure out where the first Fabulous Fighter were getting a little bit closer, trying to target one of their supports around the back. But first Fabulous Fighter are actually giving a lot of ground away from Bilibili. They're waiting until this payload moves past the bridge, and then they can try and collapse on them. All the while, Visas is retreating further and further so that Bilibili can't actually try and find the Widowmaker and hound her down.
Yeah, there was a lot of Sonic Arrows committed to trying to find V's position, and it's made Pineapple play a little bit more cautious and cognizant of where their positioning is. You can see a little shot or two coming out onto Top Dragon, not getting the takedown like they would have had. Storm Arrows get rid of that shield quickly up front on 800 as they continue to press forward. Kodomo looking for an opportunity to engage in the back, gets an accretion for some follow-up, but really nothing too severe just yet, as finally you have a tank going down by Top Dragon, and that should allow a little bit more dominance by FFF.
Oh, Pineapple, you don't want to be there! You may have grappled off, but you're about to get the mace to the face! Oh, that's never a good place when you're a Widowmaker and the brig's that close. You have to hit that first shot, otherwise you are just not going to be having a fun time.
Great reaction, but you're still finding yourself in a rock and a hard place. You've got Top Dragon.
Actually gonna go back onto the Genji this time, so they're trying to track down V's and clear the hard way, but now you have to get through the gauntlet that is this double shield. There's so much peel available to save the squishies.
I'm liking the combination. You've got the Shimada brothers from Bilibili. Quick dash to that high ground in the back, waiting patiently to try and get a nice dive. As you've got V's, though, with the Imprecise, so they do have knowledge exactly where Alpha Yi is, just waiting for it to drop off, and honestly just buying some great time for right now.
Yeah, Alpha Yi just playing way behind enemy lines. Top Dragon's actually going to use the Dragon Strike to try and cut this team in half, but no one can really try and capitalize outside of the tank lineup, trying to go in deep, find any sort of pick. Kodomo on his own, able to lock down Top Dragon. The Hanzo is gone.
Oh, and Alpha Yi gets that damage onto V's. The follow-through just now putting V's in such an uncomfortable position, trying to handle the Genji, but then now having to watch out for the just drawn arrows in the back by Pineapple. This will finally be a takedown here for Bilibili. Overwhelming first Fabulous Fighters, and that slow, methodical, well-timed play with the Genji has really paid off.
1 minute, 24 seconds on the clock, and first Fabulous Fighter, if they want to contest this, they absolutely do have the ultimates. And that's why Bilibili are already trying to situate themselves up onto this high ground, because the second that one of this team falls, that's when you're going to have a really hard time trying to keep this contest going.
Pineapple keeping a weary eye on that doorway to not get overwhelmed from the side. You've got both the Supercharger and the Rally committed, but the checkpoint still has been obtained. Riven does get rid of Alpha Yi, and Kodomo tries to give some retaliation to the back line, and First Fabulous Fighter is actually going to hold this before it even surpasses the doorway.
You know, all of this right now is just scrapping over who gets high ground. First Fabulous Fighter, they know if they win this fight, they get to poke away at Bilibili, maybe even secure in an entrance pick. And that's going to force Bilibili to wait just a little bit longer. Alpha Yi all the way in the back, V's as well, finding these picks. But for Alpha Yi, it's going to be a lot harder for this Genji to get in, because you're going to be putting the blade in, but it's going to be into that shield bash. And Pineapple's actually going to use the Dragon Strike just to force FFF to give up the ground they fought so hard for.
Yeah, and you've got Mocha now just chilling in the corner, nowhere to run. Bolt Tank's going to collapse on top of it. That shield won't last for much longer. You actually do have Mocha surviving and withstanding it with clear, but BLX and several others just going to fall in suit shortly. Wow, actually, First Fabulous Fighters recovers from that.
And, oh, you want to talk about poke damage? Visa's going to swap onto the Echo. That is going to be so much damage chunked in the second that Bilibili actually leave their spawn. And you can see, they know that this Genji Blade is coming. They want to make sure that they're going to be there to be able to stop it. So much crowd control. Riven with the rock. The Orisa Holt. The fact that you have to worry about Immortality Field as Pineapple is creeping into the back, trying to find a little bit of a distraction to open up to force the Batiste to turn away and deal with them while the Genji can get the blade through.
Oh, but Sticky Bombs instantly responded to with a focusing beam. I mean, like a targeting system. No value at all. And you actually have now the Supercharger committed. Dragon Blade's going to take down 800, and there is not enough sightlines for that Supercharger to give the extra boost of damage to recover, and FFF's just going to steamroll right now.
That was a little bit of a missed time right there. It felt like Pineapple was going into the backline to draw attention away so that the Genji Blade can come through, but then the Genji Blade comes through right in front of the amplification matrix, and the Genji does not survive to even really finish the ult line. As we will see, FFF still holding strong. V still putting that poke damage in, forcing Hinge to just hold the shield up. Bilibili not able to come in until the sticky bombs explode, all the while time just dwindling off the squad.
I mean, Alpha Yi, though, coming in with the Echo themselves, so they haven't really lost too... I mean, they wanted to use it, of course, before swapping to not get completely lost out of it, but that focusing being down below is going to be critical to take down Riven, who had the Flux to use to slow down this momentum. Alpha Yi getting a lot of damage onto V's in the back, but it's taken down by Mocha. Just the stray minigun getting those last hits necessary to get them out of the fight, as this regroup down towards the middle ground, but has to be so cautious of Riven right now.
Well, Mocha not so cautious of Pineapple. Top Dragon will finally be able to take their mirror out of the way, but first Fabulous Fighter, they're building up to ultimates. They know that they've got one more fight before the payload hits that check mark, and with 30 seconds left on the clock, you can see that Bilibili are more than aware of the fact that FFF could recontest this, already creeping around the side room. Raleigh going to be committed. They want to touch this payload. They want to stop it now.
Yeah, they're building a great amount of it. It was early enough to get the advantage. You have V's now going onto the duplicate, getting the Orisa for the extra shielding. Also going to try and get the supercharger for the boosted damage to secure the hold, because there's only 18 seconds left. This is now going to have to be a rush for Bilibili, and First Fabulous Fighters might actually be able to take a map away from BLG.
Yeah, First Fabulous Fighter, they've got the Dragon Strike as well. If Bilibili can even get the touch, you can see Heinja trying to desperately go for the Lucio, but you're so far away, the flail's going to be knocking you back if you can even touch. And FFF going to be taking a map away from Bilibili in an absolutely explosive fashion. I talked about how strong they were when they had that space to work with. You could see that adaptation coming through the second that they figured out, we're going to have them coming into these fights so many times. The second we go Echo, we're going to get an ultimate up pretty much every third fight.
Huge shout out to First Fabulous Fighters. I made that comment earlier about saying that, you know, they're a little bit behind the pack of three. They're actually bringing some great competition to BLG, which is something I could honestly say that maybe myself and I think all of us, even in like our discussion as casters, were like, no, I don't know how they're going to be really fend off. They've proven themselves at least going into this next map, and I really cannot wait to see how this third map's going to end up coming out.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup because you can see that adaptation coming in really properly. And huge shout out as well to Claire. She did such a good job. She got focused down so heavily. The second that they figured out, okay, this Batiste is literally the legs that lets this composition stand up. We just go after the Batiste, we pull out the immortality field, and every single thing that goes against the Batiste, it's all to counter immortality field, to pull it out so an ultimate can actually be ready. But Clay did such a good job, and the rest of the team too, peeling, having BLX come on the Brigida so that you can help not only your DPS in the back line, but you can also keep your BAP up, alive, and that immortality field on cooldown.
We'll be able to see if FFF managed to keep up this momentum to put BLG in an uncomfortable position and give them a little bit of a run for their money. But we'll see you on the other side of this break to see what that third map has in store for these two teams. Welcome back, friends, as we are here to continue into map 3, as we do have a 1-point to 1-point score between Bilibili and First Fabulous Fighters. And, before the break, we really did highlight how First Fabulous Fighters is really being able to overcome their demons of this not only hero pool, but what we as casters kind of put a little bit on the side burner, and now looking to try and turn up the heat to put Bilibili, like we mentioned, in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah, and we were actually talking during the break. We were praising FFF for coming in because we talked about it a little bit earlier on in the broadcast, right? That it really is going to be key how these teams adapt around these hero bans because we've seen the easy solution for a lot of these teams, that immediate press to win button, is relying on the DPS, most especially that Tracer. And it really is going to be how well can you land on your feet when that option is taken away from you? Will you still have the same level of success? And both FFF and Bilibili are really impressing in terms of that DPS lineup. We were all talking about, well, are they going to have the same impact? Are they still going to be able to create that same level of space when they're not a Tracer, when they don't have free immediate get out of jail free cards, and even the ability to time travel and get your health bar back up to full? But no, all of these DPS so far have really impressed.
I mean, in addition to not only the DPS, but we commented all the way back in the control map when it came to how to handle the dive, and we've just confirmed that it is going to be Temple of Anubis next. So we also kind of talked a little bit about how Bilibili, with their dive composition, has been very stellar, and with also the knowledge from FFF being able to counter in smaller corridors, doorways, easy to exploit it. If they can snowball that knowledge that they had in the couple of really great fights that favored them, that could really carry over into this map of Temple of Anubis. And as it looks like we're going to have on the attacking side Bilibili with First Fabulous Fighters on the defense first, but we also are curious to see what the DPS are going to select, because we saw so much of an Ashe Echo play, but here we're going to see a slight variation of it.
I mean, I actually love this composition coming out from FFF's defense. It is just geared around stopping any support that could come onto the dive when it comes through. Bilibili aren't going to have the option of doing what dive compositions love to do, let the Winston take damage and then get out, because if the Winston actually goes in, you're not only going to be behind in the Rista shield, you're going to be hit by so much exit damage from Top Dragon with the pulse spam. V's is going to drop the flashbang, and then on top of that, River's going to use the defense matrix to gobble up all of the healing that should be coming onto the Winston.
And as just when we are about to have doors open for some great, exciting Overwatch, we have a subtle pause just for the brief moment. But with that being said, you're already going to get some early potential lead with that Echo getting some sticky bombs onto the shielding. And, entering into this, now that we have that understanding, it is still going to be that double bubble type of composition with the Zarya rolling into this, and not going to see that full dive composition with the D.Va and the Winston. And I'm really going to look to see how beneficial that can be for Bilibili to try and approach. But you made so many valuable points in this defensive position from First Fabulous Fighters. It's still going to be a real challenge for Bilibili to bypass it.
I mean, you can see as well that FFF are acknowledging the geography of the map. It's going to be a lot harder for them to try and pull this dive into one of the side rooms of Anubis. So instead of going for geography and architecture to favor them, they are just putting so much into this crowd control. We're actually going to see Pineapple going on to that Ashe, just putting a little bit more damage into those shields. So 800 gets a little bit more of a cushion to be able to jump in, as Alfie is just sniffing around trying to figure any of these off angles out to make Mokka move that Arista shield and allow the Ana's healing to come through.
And there's also the change with Kodomo. Does it stay on the Zarya? Those shields are just going to be obliterated so quickly, and wanting now to go more so for that defense matrix, having the ability to dive in on that middle high ground and engage so much more verticality to this composition that they can utilize to try and bypass. But honestly, First Fabulous Fighters still holding strong, and a lot of charge here from this DPS lineup, but a great pickup onto Mokka here for BLG.
Yeah, the Orisa going down means the dive doesn't even need to wait for that nano boost. The res will come through, Kama gets it off, but you've lost the Echo, you've lost the McCree, and that's the gatekeeper to this dive already removed. It is just going to be stall potential to try and get your tanks back, your DPS rather, back in, but unfortunately, McCree means that Alfie gets an absolute shooting gallery right now, and Bilibili D.Va doesn't do a lot of damage, neither does Winston, but you have enough to chunk down what remains when Alfie is done.
There's just so much snowball. Like, that early pickup, forcing the res and just losing that healing, just is the avalanche. And now moving into this next point, you're going to have 5.5 minutes for Bilibili to just take their time, and they've got still a decent ultimate economy to use because they really didn't need to force anything.
Now, FFF do have a saving grace on the horizon. BLX's amplification matrix could be huge. They have to get it when Bilibili are static though, and static dive is a lot harder to pin down, especially when 800 knows FFF's win condition and is doing everything in his power to circumvent it.
So much forward aggression just to draw back BLX. The amplification matrix does come out. Flashbang does get a little bit jarred here, but still able to escape with their life, getting that health pack to re-engage on this. FFF with Top Dragon getting this Diva, having the self-destruct, gonna toss it overhead, just again try and force back BLG, and that's a great pickup as well. Just around the pillar, couldn't hide from the architecture to survive through it. And First Fabulous Fighters, even though they've got a lot of time left to shut down, that's a great way to start.
I mean, beautiful recovery, because now Mocha actually swapping over to the Hammonds is going to be able to have the mines in the next fight, and we've already seen FFF try and stop this dive by just stemming its mobility. Irony's trying to build up to this mana boost. That, we know, is when Bilibili are probably going to try for a push. Everything before then is just finding that first pick, trying to find that opening that allowed them to have Ace so easily. But FFF are actually playing a little bit further out of sight, not allowing the same thing to happen.
Self-destruct tucked into the back. Riven attempting to get somebody, does get stuck a little bit in the corner, so not nearly as much valuable sightline or angle as Nano comes out onto Alpha Yi, looking to quickly get the last portion of this ultimate so that they can use the duplicate. Minefield does remove Irony, so you're solely relying on the Mercy healing to fuel this engagement, and you actually have a double kill already coming through. 2 ultimates forced out from First Fabulous Fighters to try and clean it up. But Pineapple, also with the res, getting Irony back online, keeps them in this. The Immortality field has to be forced out by BLX to keep stability on this defensive hold, but a recovery nonetheless, with V's giving some huge assistance.
V's just used Deadeye and is about to hit it again. Top Dragon's even actually gone on to the Reaper, so Pineapple doesn't have free reign of this high ground. Even Alpha Yi is being kept in check by double barrel shotguns. That is not the traditional echo counter that you see, but Kama going down is going to allow Bilibili a foot in the door if they choose to press, but Top Dragon's just making it so hard, immediately slamming it into this attacking team's face.
Foot in the door, but yeah, not yet completely walking through it. Now with the duplicate, that might be an opportunity, forcing back BLX, looks for the takedown. Immortality field has to be forced out. Minefield is ready. Going to drop it into that opposite doorway so nobody can leave that spawn door and attempt to get the DMAC. Doesn't find the full takedown, and you do have the duplicate loss, but there's a quick sticky mine immediately after, as the Deadeye from V's will attempt to equalize, but there is so much Tesla Cannon damage with the Nano boost onto 800. Now has the Primal. This should be a sustained with the res coming out onto Alpha Yi from the Mercy play, and they should have this ultimately as long as they just get rid of these last few staggers.
Pineapple's buff actually hits a wall, but Pineapple has been hitting everything that this team needs right now. As First Fabulous Fighter do have a little bit faster respawn times, they can still try and contest this. Riven's going to drop in. If Mocha can come back in with those Hammond mines, that's when this contest comes real.
Oh, but there is so much damage. Kodomo up front. The 100 energy just vaporizing anybody that touches this point. Immortality field will not be there to save anyone. The sleep dart gonna put the Reaper to rest and leaving him cold amongst his grave for this almost completion. Again, at this point, you just have First Fabulous Fighters trying to reduce the clock. It's going to be inevitable, but as any time you can take off will be a benefit for them as these final seconds dwindle and will be able to complete that second point.
It feels very much like Junkertown, right? Map started off, had a little bit of the wheels fall off, but then the stabilization that comes through at the end. First Fabulous Fighters to dwindle the clock down to that much after you lost A so quickly. There's no easy feat. Bilibili 1 minute 46 will finally get that second point and force these two to switch sides. And this is the true test for First Fabulous Fighter. Can they still have the strengths that we've seen this team display when the shoe is on the other foot, when they're the ones intruding into the space?
We get to take a look at that defensive composition in just a matter of seconds. I would not be surprised with Alpha Yi and Pineapple potentially doing the Ash Echo. That's something that we've seen. It's something that has been dominant. You can already see it's going to be picked up because the ability to gain zonage with the dynamite and just how much damage can be pumped out with the sticky mines and the focusing beam, it's such a great advantage in this narrow choke point.
My main concern though is that Bilibili, they're fielding this double bubble dive on the defense. So Irony and Henji, I mean Henji is the Mercy, so you will be able to just flip between Alfie and Pineapple. But for Irony, who is going to be the real source of peel? Could almost got to save the bubbles for 800, otherwise that rotation, the cycle is completely skew if and the Winston goes down in seconds. Pineapple will be there with the coach gun, but that is only going to serve you so far. And first Fabulous Fighter, they're going to have so much damage coming in that you don't have to worry about chipping through a shield first.
Orisa going to be selected. You do have that at least mitigation of damage with the Riven Diva play to try and elevate to that middle high ground. A little bit of engagement comes through by 800 up front, getting some nice recovery and healing to get the top back off. Kodomo looks to draw back just slightly, keeping an eye as Alpha Yi takes that window position to start getting some decent damage. You've got Top Dragon, though, harassing quickly with that double barrel. Does get very low, has to force that fade and evasion, but does get picked off immediately. Nobody could get the healing above 50%, so that extra damage was so critical for Bilibili to continue maintaining. There's another pickup, and this is just Alpha Yi's just consistent dominance right now.
Damage boosted Echo, and when you have accuracy like Alpha, you need to have that McCree 24/7 looking for the sky. But Bilibili, they're just hounding, making sure that Beast does not have the time or the space to be able to line the shots up, and so Alpha 80%. That first duplication. It's not going to be the first ultimate on the board, though. BLX will be there, but you're trying to pin that down when it's a dive composition. You have to be so careful about your timing on that window.
Top Dragon looking for a rotate, trying to get 800 low. Does manage to evade and escape with the jump to recover back towards the team. The support lineups is just starting to near their ultimates. Irony just a little bit shorter behind, but the Valkyrie is available for this next engagement as you've got BLX. A great Bionade onto BLX. No healing. Doesn't manage to survive because the Immortality field was quickly eliminated, and now you're just sitting ducks if you're first Fabulous Fighters on this middle high ground.
Yeah, and the amplification matrix is set up, so 800 knows exactly the right space to land so that you don't have to worry about that increased damage. We're gonna see first Fabulous Fighter chased out of the doors yet again. They don't really have the ultimates to probably try and push it. They've got the silent barrier to come in. They can try and use that engagement, but Bilibili just has so much stall potential, and the more HP that you field for Kodomo, the faster that grab is going to get charged up, and because you have to use that silent barrier to get in, well, all stress is going to be on Riven's shoulders to get the eat, otherwise that's going to be another fight lost and more time drained off the clock.
For those paying attention to that last little tidbit of fight, that was just Alpha Yi trying to find that once again Riven kill with the mech being dropped down to the ground, just constantly looking for another one. As now you're going to see Riven with the self-destruct looking to potentially toss that into the back line onto the high ground. Nano does come out onto 800, does have that Primal Rage to give some assistance up front as you've got Alpha Yi still playing down below. Getting some decent sticky mines behind the shield, but nobody going down just yet. Nice recovery. Mocha has that supercharger, but Bionade comes out on from Irony. 3 are hit by it. No takedown, so great sustain, even though that was a big Bionade. Lots of purple, but with the grab, the Immortality field gone. Oh, but a Death Blossom risen to the skies by the Bob, mind you. Gives a little bit more survival for Top Dragon, but this is a chance now for FFF to get back into this.
Not if that res can come through and Pineapple gets to land that one. So that means Pineapple is back in. High and J still 20% off that Valkyrie. Clock is still ticking. And first Fabulous Fighter are getting the point percentage. Bilibili, they're trying to keep this point in that position, but BLX going down means no amplification matrix, and first Fabulous Fighter are very quickly losing any sense of sustain. Both support's gone, and unfortunately they don't have a lot of movement now. They have no clean disengage, and Bilibili are more than happy for this fight to just keep going as we head into the last 30 seconds.
That was stunning. Like, that was such an opportunity for first Fabulous Fighters, but it slowly eroded away, and as you commented, that res from Mercy was just so critical to get back into this, and now we're in final fight territory, and the swaps have to come through.
Pineapple's so close to that Bob, though. Irony going to have the nano boost. Bilibili, they've got the ultimates. First Fabulous Fighter do have the amplification matrix. They need to find a kill. They need to charge the ultimates themselves, but Bilibili aren't really allowing them to just do anything other than move their way onto the point, and even Mocker's just going to be chased away. Amplification matrix being popped just to try and find any sort of kill to keep the Hound alive long enough.
Pineapple continuing to pump damage from overhead, does force to the low ground. You do see the still numbers advantage in favor of Bilibili. Alpha Yi gets back online with the res. Self-destruct getting picked off almost on the way down. There has been some seriously stellar play from Bilibili, but Alpha Yi, throughout this defensive hold, has constantly been gaining value. And there is no ability for FFF to hold on to it. And that's going to be BLG taking this Temple of Anubis.
Yeah, Alfie just absolutely popped off on that pick, and not just the Echo, but the rest of the team identified that the Echo was the defining factor in that defense. Just the range that you have on that character is so strong. The amount of damage that you can output, the charge rate of your ultimate absolutely through the roof when you're landing those shots. And Bilibili did everything in their power to make sure that everything that could potentially counter Alpha Yi was just chased away so the Echo was free to just spam away.
And then, as you can see in this last stage, the Zarya power beam was just shredding health values in the end of this to secure the completion. So all in all, just Bilibili really being able to elevate, now take the lead with second point, putting them into a match point situation. So FFF, again, already giving the major props to the fact that they have not allowed this to go to a 3-0 as we saw in the weeks prior. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. And going into this next map, which is going to be their selection, hopefully is going to be one that will favor them so they can actually bring this into a map 5.
Yeah, and I mean, we really have to see them being able to focus down Alpha E. You cannot allow the Echo the space. Heck, I'm even like one step away from suggesting they go Torbjorn just so they can put the turret down and try and keep this Echo in check, right? It's a valuable, solid pick. We see it
It
counter
is.
Traces, we see it counter Forest. The problem is you don't really have the space when you're on the attack to actually set that turret up, otherwise it's gone within seconds.
And as we do take a look to see what our next map selection is, it is going to be Hollywood. Again, another one of those lovely, unique, and rare maps we don't get to see as frequently, and we'll be curious to see how First Fabulous Fighters is going to play this. But again, this is one of those maps where we've still seen a decent amount of echo, and you really don't want to allow Alpha E to basically feel comfortable in this.
Yeah, that's the problem with Echo, right? At least Farah finds her counter and the sky ceiling, but Echo, not so much. She can do both. So every single map that pops up is going to be just free grinds for Alfie to lock onto that pick. And now that Bilibili have seen it work so well, absolutely no second guess as to what they're going to be locking that DPS into. First Fabulous Fighter have to try and find their way around it, and you can already see that thinking, do we go for double shields that the Echo has to chip through just a little bit more, doesn't have that insane amount of poke damage on the entry? Do we go for something a little bit faster so the Echo can only really pin down one of us, rather than catching everyone and just supercharging that ultimate in seconds?
We enter. Again, we find ourselves on match point for Bilibili. These coming out with a Doomfist. And I'm just excited to see that. I'm gonna swap.
You
Okay.
got to see it for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, it was there.
Happens. You still
It was
got
there
to
and
see
gone.
It. You still get to be surprised and excited that V's is going to be going back onto that McCree. They know the Doomfist can come out to hit the backline, but then no one is keeping Alfie in check. Clear on that Ana is going to be so vulnerable, so easy for this Echo to get on top of, that you have to have a hit scan.
Now with these continuing to try and press forward, Alpha Yi's going to play super cautious here. They know that that's a very, very significant win condition for them to continue getting damage into these narrow doorways, especially when you've got First Fabulous Fighters pressing up to this balcony, just getting completely overwhelmed with damage. A little bit of a side angle. You've got Top Dragon going down, attempting to play the counter pick. Alpha Yi continues just to do, you know, Alpha Yi things and maintain with the rest of the team, and 800's just feeling comfortable on this low ground.
And the second that FFF probably try and push into this point, that's when we see the Nana boost come out. And FFF are being a little bit more passive, they know. The second that they group up, that's when the Echo is going to get that insane amount of output, chasing after the Zarya, and there's just so much target focus coming out from Bilibili. The Echo just chips the health bars down, the rest of the team come in and finish off the job. Albi will finally go down, but you still can't push forward because Pineapple is playing bouncer outside your spawn.
Pineapple's just chilling in the wings, waiting. It's like, Alpha Yi, I'm waiting until you're gone, I get a little bit of glory, and then we rinse and repeat.
Well, FFF do have a lot of shutdown right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and just take this fight to the point as quickly as possible, but they have to be so aware of the sustain up and available for Bilibili. High just hit that rally, and FFF with this many ultimates, they don't want to mess this fight up.
No, they don't. They have the minefield to lead into it first. Try and overwhelm. The Deadeye in the back looking for a zone. Doesn't really get too much sightline with that trash can being in the way, as you've got Alpha Yi going in with the Zarya pick, attempting to get some decent damage and bring that DMAC down before the self-destruct can come out. Grab's actually going to be tossed into the back of this to overwhelm a self-destruct tossed in as well from Kodomo. I think they really could have held on to that, but they want to just basically secure it with how quickly they've been generating these ultimates. And now in the long run, First Fabulous Fighters withstands that barrage and just actually comes back in to take this first.
Well, they will take the first tick, and Alfie will fall down, so Bilibili, if they want to come and contest this, and Kodomo is still keeping a little bit of a sentinel watch on that one. Even 800 is back and pops the primal. They want to keep this fight going. They know that First Fabulous Fighter exhausted a whole lot of their ultimates in the opening of that fight, but First Fabulous Fighter have the numbers. They've got Riven charged up on this Zarya, and Bilibili trying to keep that stall potential may well have staggered themselves out of the first fight on B.
I mean, I'm real impressed, ultimately. The fact, just the resilience from First Fabulous Fighters going into this, also their proactivity when they are very cognizant of the ultimates going into that fight, as you mentioned, not really having anything to come back into this. The Primal Rage just buying some time, but still 3 minutes into this Streets portion of Hollywood, finding some opportunities on top of the Saloon with the Minefield, going to give a lot of harass. The Bionate is there to prevent, but still going to be able to sustain, and you've got now a little bit of a hesitation here before pushing up, but the payload's still going to get some decent distance.
Yeah, and you even force the Nano Boost out from Irony to try and keep 800 alive in that sense, so you don't have to worry about that one in the next fight. You've denied all of the contest on the payload by taking that fight to the high ground, playing one member down, but FFF still coming out on top. And we talked about how well First Fabulous Fighter play when they have that space. Well, they're saying this is ours right now, and Bilibili really do have to give every inch if they want to get through these doors and get into this fight, but FFF already in position. They're the ones going to get the chip damage, and Alfie on this Echo can be insane, but it's a little bit harder to do when your movement is completely stunted by a corridor.
You got some already crowd control with that pile drive from up top, getting a lot of damage. Looks for the takedown, does fall shy to get rid of Pineapple, so the hit scan still survives, looking for that opportunity to take down Top Dragon. Does get the duplicate off in time, and will bring down Pineapple. Double 6 shooters on the field. Looking for a rotating Deadeye in the doorway. Doesn't get the takedown, but Rivet is there to follow up onto Irony. And First Fabulous Fighters right now is just on a rampage through this portion.
Well, Alfie, though, the wings are unclipped. The Echo does manage to pin out the Zarya, and it's actually going to force Market to drop the Hammer Mines. They know that this Echo is alive. They know that the DPS is still there, and Bilibili, they've got the faster respawns. FFF say, we've dropped our ultimates. We don't have the numbers. We don't want to contest this. We have 1 minute 34 seconds left in the clock. We want to set up for this next fight, and we want to do it right. But now you've given the high ground over to Bilibili, and this dive is going to be incessant in dropping into your backline.
First Fabulous Fighters was so close, and they were in such a prime position, but just could not remove that key factor. So the continued defense is here with 1 minute and 15 seconds to go. You have the high ground still being dominated by First Fabulous with a grab, waiting to potentially drop it onto the back line, getting still a lot of value, as the elevators will be quite an aid. Oh no, Kodomo finds 2. That's got to be a regroup. 60 seconds left. You can't afford to stay in this.
Oh, as BLX pop the rally as well, and Bilibili, they want to stagger this out. They know that it's FFF's last fight, and you can already see Alfie set up into position so close to getting that duplication. Oh, marker has been spotted. No number letter here today, Rich. They know that the Hammond is in the back, and they're more than happy to actually keep the 2 parts of that team completely separated. Chip a little bit of damage into the Hammond, use it as ult charge. Well, Clear can't capitalize on the fact that the Hammer's HP gets lower and build up to that now.
If Pineapple goes down here, that's critical, but you're going to get potentially some sightlines. All have to evade. The duplicate comes through up front, but does get demeched instantly. Top Dragon losing all value from that because of the subtly late engagement. But okay, as I say that, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to, it's just going to be back and forth. Alpha Yi, once again, survives, finds the advantage, completely flips the coin, and just shuts down everything from First Fabulous Fighters. That was absolutely nutty in the span of, what, 3.5 seconds, maybe? The shift between dominance of Bilibili, dominance First Fabulous Fighter, now dominance back to Bilibili. Unreal.
Dominance of Bilibili, dominance of Alpha E. This guy is having an absolutely insane game. If that's not going into his highlight reel, I don't know what is. First Fabulous Fighter, they will be on the defense though, and this, like I said, I mentioned it. Maybe we get to see the Tourbillon come out. Maybe we get to see the heavy counter come through to this Echo. Because now you will have the space to be able to employ it. But I wonder what their DPS wants to lock in. We've seen them try hit stem. We've seen them try go double shield. We've seen BLX come out onto the Brigida to try and keep clear a little bit safer behind that Brig Bash. But it seems as if they're going to put V's onto the Ashe this time and try and find a different hit scan to counteract this Echo when they have to. Because Bilibili are a hard team to beat any day of the week. Bilibili, when Alpha E is playing to this, is absolutely unstoppable if FFF don't shut him down.
It's petrifying, because again, you're finding yourself now, this is it. This is match point here for Bilibili, dropping first Fabulous Fighters into that lower bracket to try and have a redemption, getting back into this. But I mean, again, they've done quite a stellar job. We have seen them pick this map. They could feel confident on it, making it a map choice victory through and through to bring them into a control map. And with their composition and with Clear on the Baptiste, it could happen.
Yeah, you can have Clear coming in with that healing, but you can also try and keep Alfie in check. Give a little bit of a helping hand to V's, because as soon as Bilibili sees that hit scan, they know what the dive is going for. They know that someone is going to be trying to put a stop to Alpha E, but this Echo, again, still playing very passive, just putting the head out, putting a little bit of damage into the shield, letting the dive properly set it up, and then getting the shields down. But that is the opportunity FFF were looking for. The second the Echo reveals herself, she will be prime target number 1.
Well, especially with Mocha dropping that halt. The halt pulling right back out into the open, just giving that extra few seconds for sightlines. But when you've got Pineapple being the sneaky Reaper in the back, getting rid of BLX, a lot now riding on the shoulders of Clear to keep this team alive. First Fabulous Fighters. There is a nano boost onto 800, getting so much Tesla Cannon damage underneath, and has the fixated sightlines onto Clear. And with both supports gone, that is an easy pickup from Bilibili to take this first point.
Yeah, showing that you can't sleep on Pineapple either. That was a beautiful read. Force FFF off the high ground. The Mercy panics and actually pulls back to the high ground above the point, and Pineapple actually teleported to make sure that you're able to cut the Guardian Angel off the second the Mercy falls down. FFF get pinched in, and now they're pinched between a Death Blossom and an Echo, and it is just curtains for that fight. Finished in seconds. Bilibili looking to keep this payload moving.
I mean, that was royally red theater Broadway kind of curtains in that doorway. I mean, that's like a showstopper when you're in that kind of position, and First Fabulous Fighters now has to be so careful pushing out through these doorways to not be overrun, and this is just free payload progress.
So you're saying instead of a showstopper, they're looking for a payload stopper, as we will see them trying to come in with a lot of these ultimates. They do have a fair bunch of them. This Bob could be especially brutal because it's going to come through, but again, you have to turn your focus. The second that the coach gun is used for Pineapple, BLX is becoming immediately that target that Bilibili turn their attention to. Such good focus coming out from Bilibili, reading the resources to keep the Mercy are missing, and now they can press forward and still force FFF not to be able to take a clean fight.
Alpha Yi needs to be stopped. There's now these final moments. Mocha and Riven get hit with the Bionade, have to play further back. Alpha Yi going for the Zarya to get this quick grab to try and solidify this final push and make sure that they can secure a completion. Gets the Wrecking Ball, looks for the damage, continuing to try and give assistance, but the shield is there to give a little bit more reinforcement. Also with Riven just peek in the corner, give a barrier. Shell that Wrecking Ball as the focusing beam comes out instantly below 50% health. That's the extra damage. The box is there. Can they complete it and end it now? It's only a hope and a prayer for First Fabulous Fighters as Riven looks for some assistance from the spawn. The advantage is for First Fabulous Fighters as Top Dragon goes onto the Doomfist. We've seen this before from Top Dragon in desperate times, and it manages to hold on.
Riven with the Graviton with that little bit of charge clear as well. Helping hand onto the Zarya, but the anti-nade goes through. And Riven is actually forced to give away the high ground, wait for reinforcements before they can try and press it. And that means all the while, Alpha E trying to find a little bit of poke damage, goes a little bit too aggressively. He's able to line this up. They're looking for the rest. The Wisdom Bubble the rest does not come off. The flashbang is there, and Bilibili forced to wait just a little bit longer, but Mocha actually dropped the hammer mines during that.
The shield timing from 800 was perfect, but did not expect to have the McCree just jump inside of it. Oh man, this is an opportunity for First Fabulous Fighters to slowly push this payload back and give a little bit more ground for them to work with, utilizing these elevators as well and looking to try and pick up Alpha E.
Yeah, Visa is trying to shut down this high ground push coming out from Bilibili. They don't want Irony to have any sort of bird's eye view. Mock is even going to come for a little bit of a roll around, try and knock someone off, separate the team. But Bilibili are extremely mobile. They've got so much movement, but again, Mock coming from the lift.
High Noon looking for the tank down, does get knocked away into the sticky mines as well. Huge Bionade as well. So many of First Fabulous Fighters are low. Those health values dwindling as Pineapple gets a pick up onto V's. Now the Snowball and the Dominoes continue to fall. The Death Blossom underneath in the saloon will have at least Riven trying to take down Pineapple's Death Blossom, so it won't get more value, but the numbers will run dry. Riven again in the final instances can't survive long enough to keep the respawns in their favor, and Bilibili Gaming looks to move on, dropping First Fabulous Fighters into the losers bracket.
You can tell as well that they just stopped caring about the high ground. They're like, wait a minute, we've only got a couple of meters to push. Sure, there's a hammock knocking us off, but the second that we should take the fight onto the main road, take it a little bit closer to the payload, suddenly FFF would hold themselves up on the high ground, trying to find the very first cheeky pick to keep Bilibili backtracking, to keep that clock draining away. Well, they find themselves in a space that they really don't want to be. They have to hightail it down to the payload, then they get pinched in between the Reaper, forced into the room, forced to take the Death Blossom straight to the face, and it all falls away from there.
I mean, it's more so even just how much spread damage came out in that last fight. When you've got that many that low and are starting to scatter from the rooftop, I don't care what level of support you are, that's still a moment where, like, you're just processing so much to try and figure out what the best evaluation is here, and it's just, you're basically picking up straws and hoping that you gather enough.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't even use your major cooldowns either because you know that those ultimates are going to be coming through. Making the decision between using an anti-nade to try and save a tank that's about to go down or saving it for a Death Blossom so that you can stop the Reaper from getting that self-regen is a big difference maker. And you could see that Clear really was thinking, what do I do? What utility do I use? How much can I commit? The fact that they were actually able to survive to see themselves onto that payload really says a lot about the support lineup that we've praised from FFF, but Bilibili were more than ready. They came in with the ultimates. They knew the second that that space went a little bit cramped, and it's really fitting that it ends that way because FFF forced Bilibili into a cramped room. That's how they won that first fight on the very first map. And unfortunately, that same strategy is used against them, and that's how they find themselves losing this series.
And as you see right at the end of it, that's the moment, the nail in the coffin for this first match so far today. But again, we've got one more coming up, which is still going to be quite a doozy. This one was definitely one that we were not expecting, and I can guarantee you the next one is just going to be as exciting. We have Team Chaser coming up against T1W. The big teams that we've seen weeks prior go head-to-head, Map 5, Round 3, lots of excitement, so don't go anywhere. We'll be seeing you on the other side of this break with that Map 1 coming up shortly. Welcome back as we are here for the second series of today. We've already had Bilibili Gaming manage to take the victory over First Fabulous Fighters. As we take a look at that schedule here, you will be able to see how the remainder of this night is going to look. Team Chaser versus T1W. Big, big differences, at least for our predictions that we saw earlier. Moxie, you and LaFon believing that Team Chaser is going to be the one to prevail, while all of the others say T1W. And I mean, again, I'm in agreement in your reasonings behind why they should win. It's
Yeah,
just whether or not they could actually take advantage of those.
like let's just do like debate style team because I
Right?
mean honestly on paper and as a color caster I do put a lot of my favorite statistics and the logical decisions. Team Chaser have everything to work in this meta except a Predator Tracer because it is physically impossible for them to have a Predator Tracer right now. They have the resources. They're the academy team of Chengdu Hunters, so Chengdu Hunters regularly being from Overwatch League deal with hero bans. When you have access to those resources, you're coming in prepared. You've got a plan. You know how best to come in when hero bans are in rotation.
And one of the big things too is you mention about those resources and how they've had the experience in this type of environment. The one thing that I think was so shocking to us when we were doing a lot of VOD reviews and looking at the previous engagements while hero pools were still running before this knockout phase, there was a lot of, I think, disconnect in understanding the opponent's strategy prior with T1W. We saw a lot of the dive going into a heavy crowd control, just completely obliterating the dive composition. And a lot of the switches that happened were coming out too late or not getting value.
But in a counter to that, yes, they were running dive into a drastic amount of crowd control. But the match that they actually played up against T1W recently, despite them running against very heavy counters, went to the full 5 maps. It
True.
really shows that these guys, even when running against their counters, can still pull things off, can still find successes. But I absolutely agree 100%. A lot of Team Chaser's success is going to depend on whether or not we are going to see that adaptation coming out or whether it is going to be the same stubbornness that was shown in the last match against these guys. We saw X-Ray on the Hammond, absolutely brilliant player. But there's only so much a Hammond can do when you're running into 5 different forms of CC, all designed to make sure that you don't get a single pile drive off.
And I really do have to agree with you on that. If there is adaptation and it comes through where they've learned from this previous week going against T1W, I really could foresee them dominating in the long haul of this and utilizing those, honestly, just assets that they've gotten, like you mentioned with Overwatch League. But, taking a look at T1W, they've still been, I would honestly say, one of the teams that have really allowed themselves to kind of play a little bit more of a wider range, but they also are just a team that, as you mentioned, how are they going to adapt without the Tracer? And they've done very well without it, ultimately, from what we've seen.
Yeah, we can talk about, DPS and adaptation, but we know that Night God and Akide are both very, very strong in their own right when it comes to that DPS. And we always love to see the matchup of these guys going up against a Prida. Because in the past, in these matches when we didn't have those hero pools coming in, that was what really decided a lot of these matches, right? Can you out DPS the others? But now we are going to get to see that tank lineup, the supports coming in absolutely clutch. We saw it in the previous series how obvious it suddenly became when a team was doing well in a fight, when a team was doing a little bit less well in a fight. That was because either the supports were going down too quickly or the tanks were staying up too long.
And as we enter into our control map, we will see how this actually turns out, because with how close it was last time, this control map, Moxie, is going to be so vital to take first, leading into the future maps ahead going into Escort and Assault.
Yeah, especially for Team Chaser, because the tipping point in their last matchup with T1W was that they lost both
Mm.
control maps. It came close, but they lost that control map the first time, and then immediately they were on the back foot in terms of that map, and then they lost it the second time, even though they were able to equalize. And so for Team Chaser, you have to be able to walk away the victor on this one if you want to be able to not only set the pace, but set that confidence into motion. You're coming off the back of a loss against this team that went on for so long. If you're going to be coming in and sticking for the long haul, you've got to be able to pull that mentality into the cliff.
As we do see the doors open, we're going to see Headlock going on that staple Orisa, which we did see a lot in the control point last time, also with Jasper on the Sigma. Typically, sometimes taking the D.Va as well in tandem. You're going to have Team Chaser, though, fall back just a little bit here, taking a different route to enter towards the point, as you do still have X-Ray rounding the outside to find an opportunity and get some intel. And T1W is just going to play this so slow on this high ground, knowing that they've got the positional advantage.
They've got the May as well, Night Guard with the wall, so if the dive comes through, T1W can just revert back to that point, force this dive to come through, try and find a little bit of vibe, but there's the first wall, and it's an absolute stunner, completely splits the tanks away from the supports, and already Team Chaser in full retreat.
And the halt from Hetlot was an insurance to make sure that that wall was going to divide properly. The Brig and the Sig could not recover, instantly taking it down and easily dominating this to fall back and take the point.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about with Team Chaser, right? Trying to run that dive into this amount of crowd control. It's not the same level that we've seen T1W flex in the past matchups, but it is clearly more than enough to be able to hold this point in their clutches. As X-Ray just has not really been able to use the movement that the Hammond needs. Ideally, you want to create that space for your DPS to get the lineups, for Taro Cookie to be able to hit those shots on the McCree, maybe even pull a little bit of concentration for T1W to move back to the point. But again, that Maywall comes through, and Team Chaser once again completely separated, completely caught on the wrong end of it, completely sent packing.
Yeah, that wall was there. They did have quick responsiveness to remove one of the pillars. The kinetic grasp was there close in hand to make sure that they could mitigate it. But again, you've already just easily been able to divide the team, conquer it. They gave up a small percentage, but in the long run, it doesn't matter. The 10% is only a small margin compared to what T1W is going to continue to gain over the course of this time.
And T1W have so many ultimates coming into this next fight as well. Team Chaser, they'll have the Nano Boost, but you don't have a Winston to try and create that same level of space. It's going to be the Deadeye instead coming through. Wall has been forced a little bit early to try and block out that Deadeye, and that does mean that Team Chaser know that they're not going to get separated, and that's giving them confidence to move forward.
Aprita getting rid of the Reaper, though, is pretty key, so you're not going to be able to get as much damage onto X-Ray since that's gone, but Hetlok gets rid of Taro Cookie. Aprita now drops down, but the wall gives a little bit of a separation, can't get the pickups, and T1W is actually managing to hold on to this, despite the opportunities that Team Chaser was about to have. Sound Barrier comes through by Raindrop, securing their stability as well with the minefields on the point. You do have Wrecking Ball being taken out, same thing with the tank line. Last fight territory now, and T1W is just putting on a show.
Oh, and they're holding that Blizzard as well. They know it's going to be so impactful in final fight territory because Team Chaser can't just dance around the point. They have to keep touching it, which will put them right into the waiting radius. And they don't have the ultimates to keep themselves up and alive. They don't have a Batiste to try and cheat the ultimate economy. They don't have a Soundfire. All they'll have is a rally.
Predator now down below, just drawing them from the high ground, which is a great way to maybe put them onto the same playing field as you do have the high ground taken. Predator going to look for this Death Blossom to get some massive value. The Blizzard is... Oh, they don't even touch! Oh, no.
That's a tough cookie for Team Chaser to have to swallow, but you were walking into a Blizzard. You had a rally, you had a Death Blossom, but the Reaper actually getting in and getting that one off when you don't have the Zarya bubble to cushion the ultimate. T1W were just the favorites to win that map through. And now we will see the map swap coming out. Team Chaser still sticking with what looks to be this hybrid of the dive. They want X-Ray on the Hammond, and this is going to be a lot more impactful because T1W can't really play around the point if the Hammond's there, because there is that potential of knocking someone off for the environmental kill. The thing is, T1W can just get the point and then play around the corner of it. And Team Chaser, like...
No, I'm sorry. Can I just comment that you said tough cookie to swallow? I don't know if there's ever a cookie that I would not want to eat. I mean, Taro Cookie's here, and I wouldn't want... I mean, come on, like I'm sorry. I'm food. It's bad, but you know, as we do have this aggression coming out up front, it's definitely going to be quite a swift take here for T1W. And I'm sorry. I was just thinking about cookies this whole time. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible co-caster right now.
You made me think about food night like 3 times. Well, T1W, they're coming out with this Hanzo and Assassin. It's the same DPS as Team Chaser, but they're getting a lot more value from it because they only have to go through one Sigma shield. And that takes a lot less time than trying to move through an Arista and a Sigma, and you can already see T1W picking up the point already. They've got this amplification matrix. Team Chaser just having to feed themselves into the blend to try and get this reset. But Kyo had actually dropped an amplification matrix of their own, and now you don't really have anything to force T1W back. They have so much confidence with the sustain of this rally going to be up for raindrop. But Team Chaser are going to have to commit something huge like the Sigma Flux just by a little bit of ground if they want to actually move in.
T1W is on such a plateau right now. Like, they are feeling confident. They know exactly how they want to play this. They're taking advantage of the weak points that Team Chaser has not been able to correct. Flux comes out early. Dragon Strike attempts to maybe get an opportunity to press through this doorway. Taro Cookie does get rid of Headlock. The rally from Raindrop is there, but it's not going to be enough of a radius to get Jasper topped off with armor to survive as Chaser finally takes this away, just surpassing the 50% marker.
Oh, I love that ultimate combo. You lift them up with the Sigma Flex and then you dunk them down right into the Dragon. Even if you've got Immortality Field up, it does not survive that long through the Dragon Strike. And we're actually going to see Physics swap onto the Ana. Not really going to have anyone that's the prime Nano Boost target, except maybe Raindrop if you've got the rally up and through, but Night Guard is going to be something that Team Chaser have got to watch. They've just got the point. They need to make sure that the Dragon Strike does not separate the supports from the tanks, otherwise that is so juicy.
And that's a challenging position to be in if you do have it commit by Night God. Supercharger already gone down, so that is an advantage here for Team Chaser to continue causing some pressure. Dragon Strike comes through, but you've already had most of Team Chaser pressed back or divided. Akita gets the takedown onto Aprita's Bob, so it makes it still an even 6-for-6 for the time being. But still, slowly and methodically, you've got Night God trying to rotate around. Kyo gets the take out onto the support line, but this is just a back-and-forth fight. T1W manages to strip it away, passing to 66%. You've got Jasper up front, continuing to maintain as a counter Dragon Strike comes out later, finally generated by Taro Cookie, getting rid of the tank line, and this should go back in favor of Team Chaser.
Yeah, no shields to hide behind means that Taro Cookie can just pump those arrows into this point. T1W just piling on, trying to make sure that their percentage stays up as long as they can, and they're still not letting it flip. 85% picked up for this team, and the second that point flips back into their favor, it will be final fight territory. So Team Chase have got to look for a way to keep delaying this fight. Taro Cookie just trying to find any sort of entrance pick as T1W look to approach, but forced back, not wanting to get caught out by that halt, because the second one of these members goes down, this map is as good as lost.
Late Young gonna look for a big flux right now, entering in, trying to get around the pillar for some sightlines. Only does get Hatlock, but that could be enough with Nightgun going down from X-Way with the flanking position. That should draw this out for another fight to make sure that they can equalize and bring this into the 99% overtime.
Beautiful play coming out from Team Chase, but T1W actually held on to a lot of their ultimates. They're more than happy. They know that they've got enough time to be able to come back in for another approach, so hold on to the ultimates and then cash them out in one big final. And we're going to see Team Chaser X-Ray just waiting on this bookcase, hoping with those hammer mites to be able to catch them out. T1W do have a lot of aggression, but if Jasper gets caught out, have they seen the Hammond?
They haven't even seen it. Gonna bring some storytelling. Doesn't actually get stunned, locked down, has to force the shield and fall back. Minefield on the stairway, making sure that nobody can just press from that front positioning as the flux comes out by Jaster on the flank. Gets some decent damage onto the Wrecking Ball, continuing to force them away so they can't get any sort of engagement in the back line, leaving both Night God and Akita to continue dealing damage. Night God gets that tank line taken down with Jasper's assistance. The Amplification Matrix does come out by Team Chaser, but it's a little bit too late here, and the Bob's going to get CC'd and crowd controlled and immediately eliminated here with the assistance of even the supports as it swapped back.
Yeah, flip comes through because Bob went down and no one from the side of Team Chaser were touching. When it went down and T1W in full control. Hatlock going to have the supercharger coming into this final fight, and Team Chaser, they don't have ultimates, they don't have sustain. They have no way of being able to retreat to avoid the damage.
Oh, X-Ray solo gets stunned, left on the point for easy cleanup. And that's going to be a great first map here for T1W with quite a level of dominance, I would honestly say, from what we've seen around both of those maps.
Yeah, we definitely saw a much more comfortable Team Chaser coming out on that point of Sanctum. Where it fell apart properly was Village, and you could see that sort of stubborn streak coming back to haunt this team. The fact that even though there was a Mei coming through, we didn't really see that adaptation coming out to try and swap the composition to maybe move away from that hybrid of a dive. And you could already see the effect when you try and run two compositions, yeah, you maybe get a little bit of the benefit of both. But you also get a huge fallback. The fact that you only have one shield to hide behind, whereas your opponent gets two, that damage mitigation, not only are you going to be more vulnerable when it comes to the kill feed, but it also means that your opponents are going to be running laps around you in terms of that ultimate charge just because more of their hits connect.
I mean, and there were some opportunities of taking the advantage with Team Chaser, but it was just never enough. Like they were right there to potentially surpass it, and then just in the subtle moments, overwhelmed. And it's just with how well coordinated and communicated this T1W team is right now that they have taken this first control. They find themselves at a same position as they had one a couple of weeks prior and look to do the same thing here. And if honestly going into this next map you don't see that adaptation, which we've harped on quite a bit here, this really could be easily T1W finding themselves in a more dominant fashion this week than the previous one.
But we also know that a couple of teams take just a little bit longer or even a little bit more uncomfortable on that control point. And with Team Chaser, in the past, they've exhibited that control, the first map of it doesn't really go very well from them. They start adapting and improving as the series goes on, and looking to Junkertown is really where I'm going to be basing a lot of my thoughts on this team. Whether they're going to be able to make that comeback and adapt around that fallback, or whether or not it is going to be, as you said, that it is that 3-0 that T1W are looking for.
And at this point, we could potentially see Team Chaser get these next three maps, not see the control, and then call it a day. So that might also be a factor in this, as it looks like we're going to be entering into Junkertown. Again, we've already seen some great variations coming into this. We've had the Widowmaker, we've had the Hanzo, we've had a lot of long-range hit scan to give some benefit to this. Even the Genji play, and between these two teams, it would not be surprising to potentially see it. There is previous history on this map of Junkertown for both sides, coming out with Taro Cookie and Akita on the Widowmaker, and we're going to be seeing it right out the gate here as well.
And that answers the question whether or not we're going to be seeing a Predator coming out onto the Echo. That was a big question that a lot of us casters actually had, right? That maybe it would fit that space of the Tracer, that you can be a little bit more self-reliant, a little bit more mobile, harder to pin down, so you don't divert so many resources from the rest of your team that Team Chaser now are going to have to try and find to keep a Predator up. B1W going to be going for that same style of play. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Headlock, you love to see it, Rich. I know you do. Coming out on the Orisa, trying to set up a little bit of a halt. And there it is. Does actually manage to pick up Late Young, but the Sigma is there. Kinetic grasps away the damage as Taro Cookie is on the prowl.
Around the outer side, seeing where there is a possible sideline or a grapple shot over top, but still playing cautiously, knowing that you do have a Widow on the opposing side. Slowly but surely waiting to see if maybe the grapple shot's going to come out first here from T1W on the defense, but really playing towards and underneath this archway as Taro Cookie still playing a little bit more closely here, trying to find the angle, but Akita's already gotten two, so way behind the 8 ball right now for Taro Cookie.
Very similar to how we actually saw the last defense on this map, right? Rich Akita playing a little bit further back, not allowing Team Chaser to get the chance to figure out where that Widowmaker was until the shot showed. And now Team Chaser forced to wait just again. Akita, there's the grapple shot coming through. Doesn't find anyone coming out of spawn, only finds the shield. But already 64% to Taro Cookie's 26, and you can really see that Team Chaser being very wary about how they approach, having to take the side stairs. And that's putting them right into Jasper with that Sigma shield.
I mean, even with this high ground advantage from Team Chaser, you still have T1W playing so well on this low ground. The rotation from the shield, the kinetic grasp, the follow through by Jasper, who's doing a stellar job on this Sigma, is unreal.
Yeah, and then Physics gets that pick onto a Predator as well. And for Team Chaser, they've got to find some way of just busting this defense wide open, but T1W are actually playing extremely split. So whatever you do, it's only really going to catch out one of these members rather than the entirety of the team. And the second you try and actually capitalize towards that Sigma, you're finding yourself up against the Brigida. The second you walk out around these side walls, you're finding yourself right into the crosshairs of Akita.
My God, once again, taking down the support. This is just disastrous. 2 minutes left to go. Half the time bank already dwindled. X-Ray getting overwhelmed as well on the front side with Night God continuing to pump out damage. And something's got to give right now for Team Chaser to maybe try and make an adaptation here or look for a really critical pick to swap this.
They're banking up ultimates, but unfortunately they're taking so long to actually get into these fights because Orisa Sigma is extremely slow. Even more so when you're not running that Lucio, and that provides all of the opportunity for Keat and Night God to just find any sort of opening. And the second that one falls on the side of Team Chaser, they have to just wait, and pretty soon with only 1 minute 26 seconds left on the clock, they're gonna run out of time to sit on the knees.
Kinetic Grass comes out just in time there to mitigate, as you do have the Flux coming through. Does get the back line. Langsa out of the fight, solely relying on Keo, which does actually get the follow-up onto Jasper, so there is a chance to push this forward. Aprita needs to find some serious value here on this Hanzo. Really haven't been seeing too much. The Dragon Strike got the divide, but not really getting the picks necessary, as Taro Cookie can now work alongside most of T1W underneath this archway, and in this small room as a chance for exploitation. Langsa comes in. Rally's going to be driven by Raindrop to get out into the open space to recover from those coming back from spawn, but the numbers advantage still in favor of Team Chaser near the point, and that's going to allow both Aprita and Taro Cookie to have 3 sightlines, and they will be able to reach this checkpoint.
And Team Chaser thinking that they could have that fight back into their grasp actually exhaust 2 ultimates. That could well bite them in this next fight because you can see T1W not able to take this high ground right now, having to wait. And that means that Taro Cookie's going to have a massive advantage in this Widowmaker duel. They've got the Dragon Strike, but they don't have the space to be able to set Hetlot up to actually get an impactful halt to try and force Team Chaser in, nor do they have really any sort of threat to try and bully Q into using the Immortality Field early out so it can actually have an impact.
Thank God, though, getting an early advantage. The Immortality Field is forced out. Now the charge is sounded, but still actually having Team Chaser finding the better end of that engagement.
Yeah, unfortunately, T1W not running that Lucio, not having that little bit of an easier way of getting your tanks into the fight, find themselves a little bit split off. And with physics going down, this Orisa is sure to follow Hetlot folds. Team Chaser still got this payload moving. Taro Cookie just playing a little bit of sideline bully right now, making sure that T1W don't get the chance to try and go for this recontest properly. But Hetlot moving on to the Hammond does suggest that they want to touch that car.
I mean, not even that. It was a divide and conquer type of strategy. 3-3 and 2 points. And honestly, with those separating numbers and the way that Team Chaser is playing this right now, they're taking full advantage of this because the pincer maneuver is not coming out in a timely fashion for T1W to get the advantage.
Yeah, and unfortunately you need to have that pincer coming through because the second you find yourselves in a crossfire against a Hanzo and a Widowmaker on Junkertown, well, that's the second you realize you're already back into your spawn room as T1W find themselves back in there soon enough. Team Chaser moving forward so aggressively. Can't get a little bit too aggressive though, because if you do lose the Sigma, it does allow T1W to come back into this fight immediately, and you can already see they're pressing, they're trying to pin Late Young down before the reinforcements can keep that Sigma up and alive.
Now with the advantage, Night God able to get rid of their counterpart. An opportunity to try and equalize here. Flux comes through. Kinetic Grass going to mitigate some of the double tap there. Not get taken down immediately on the fall. Jasper playing up top, going in with an amplification matrix now from Physics to give some boosted damage to try and take down the tank line and stop this momentum, which has been quite a throttling drive from Team Chaser. But even with that engagement up top, they're still holding on for quite a bit, but need to recover now. 2 minutes to go. They've lost a large majority and have to just take another go at it.
Yeah, beautiful Dragon Strike actually coming out from Aprita to try and cancel out the impact of that amplification matrix from Physics, but unfortunately you just did not have the damage to see yourself through that fight and get the kills to connect. Now it is just going to be a case of try and mitigate them bleeding as Night God looking to try and find an early pick and once again just force Team Chaser to twiddle their thumbs and wait. They found where to hold up. The Dragon Strike could be absolutely ginormous once it's paired up with Hetlot's hull, and you can already see Akira using again Infrasight, making Team Chaser wait, draining the clock further and further as the Dragon Strike is set up in this. Oh no!
Attempted to go with the halt up top, not going to get nearly as much value as we've seen before. Oh, the Owl, which had some serious value, but at this point they're going to divide and conquer for Team Chaser. Going around the outside, Aprita does get one onto Physics, so you're relying on Raindrop, close proximity for the Inspire healing, but that's not going to be nearly enough to... Okay, really? As I was going to say, it shouldn't be enough, but mind you, when it's Raindrop alongside Hetlot, they're just going to have a field day.
And might I remind you that Raindrop didn't even drop Rally.
No.
The scary thing, you didn't even pull the Rally out of the break, so all of that sustain that could have been there, that would have explained why Hetlot survived, is going to be there in the next fight, and Team Chaser are coming in with, what, a Supercharger? An Infrasight? That's not something that's going to guarantee you kills, especially when Jasper is just going to be looking for an opportunity to dunk in that Sigma Flux.
X-Ray almost being brought down as well, has to play so carefully. Flux comes through, does lift, but the Fortify is there at least to get X-Ray's legs back on the ground. Immortality field expended. This is so overwhelming in a narrow corridor. Langsa does get the rally out, but it's already in the midst of the fight. The armor is being just enough to keep X-Ray alive, but Late Young's gonna fall. And now you've got Team Chaser attempting to get back into this with 10 seconds to go. They're staggered. There's only 3 remaining. You've got Aprita trying to just bob and weave between the spheres and the rock that comes through by Jasper. No one can touch. And that's going to be a halt here just past the doorway at 50.3 meters in the final stretch.
Are we stuck in some sort of paradox? I'm sure we must be stuck in some sort of time paradox, right? Because I looked at Jasper, and he opened up that fight with a Sigma Flux. And then I looked at Jasper at the end of that fight, and he was 94% to the next one.
I mean, like at the beginning of this round, Jasper has been crushing it on this Sigma. Like, really, really dominant Sigma play, which, I mean, we highlight tanks and you know, their methodology and how they're being able to give space, but, I mean, Jasper's just really playing on another level right now.
I absolutely adore how aggressive he gets the second that he realizes that Team Chaser have put themselves into a very close, narrow corridor. So close and narrow that those Sigma spheres are going to bounce and hit absolutely everything in its path. And he has so much trust in his supports that even if he presses forward to 3-4 members of Team Chaser, they'll have his back. They'll be able to keep him up and alive. And that aggression is going to be something that Team Chaser have got to be able to shut out. If they want to take Junkertown, they will be forcing double hit scan. Aprita going to be going onto the Ash Tower Cookie on to the Widowmaker. So you still have that shield damage, you still have a little bit of mobility when it comes to if you're running against that dive. T1W, they're going to stick with the Hanzo. That strike with the Dragon has been so good at trying to split this team, especially paired up with Hetlot, who has been having an absolute field day on the Orisa.
As this payload continues to press forward, we'll see if that field day will be green throughout. You look to see, again, still the same defensive position by Team Chaser. X-Ray looking for an opportunity to dive in to give some harassment, but getting so low on the outside does finally take down Night God, despite the Storm Arrows being pumped into that massive health value. So it's already an opportunity for T1W to be held back, but they're still going to at least get this payload in that archway to secure until they come back in.
Not only that, but Team Chaser are running double hit scan, and they don't have the space to actually set those double hit scan up on the ledge. T1W have forced them away from getting that prime positioning to actually build up to these DPS ultimates. You can see in the charges, Terra Cookie and Aprita, both of them haven't even passed 30%.
And now with this rotation around the outside, Jasper going to get some kinetic grasp management for damage, but does get a little bit overwhelmed by Late Young. Immortality field gone, both sides no longer available. Raindrop gets quickly overwhelmed from Keo and constantly putting pressure onto the support line. Late Young does get the accretion. You still have T1W holding on for a little bit, but they'll eventually just be divided and taken down as the 2 DPS for both Akita and Night God are going to get overwhelmed with the flank. Oh my goodness. Oh my!
Oh. Going a little bit off the pop off that. Lynx is still actually on the Mercy, was alive and able to take Keo back into the fight. But you do still have both supports to keep up. Not only that, but Kyo's going to be able to charge up that amplification matrix in next to no time. And you can tell that Team Chaser are just waiting for T1W to initiate, waiting for Physics to drop that amplification matrix and reveal where it will be positioned before they move in. Extra with those smites can absolutely nullify it, but T1W flanked around the back and no one from Team Chaser caught them out.
No, and there was, well, even though you did have the takedown on Aprita, who did get that ultimate online, you see a swift recovery, and you
Oh.
have Taro Cookie saying, I've got sights, I see you, and you are not escaping my crosshair.
One shot, one very satisfying kill for that Widowmaker as Team Chaser once again, Lynx are actually able to res up. T1W only got one pick, so the res was back. And Team Chaser are there in full, but a Predator is going to fall again, and there's no way that Lynx has the timing or the space to get that one off safely.
Dragon Strike in the back. You see a lot committed into this. Flux gonna now get late young into the air. Does go down by Physics with the assistance. Jasper gonna have to now look for the engagement. That window attempting to give some assistance with Keo, but there is no one wanting to dare pushing into that doorway because you've got both Night God and Jasper holding it, and this will be a checkpoint reached to get some extra timing on the board. And great halt as well to stop that extended hold.
Yeah, Team Chaser would have tried to go for that recontest if a Predator had not fallen. You could have paired the Bob and the Sigma Flux up, but really good target focus coming up from T1W. Sees the Ash, immediately goes for it before the ultimate can come out, and then indeed gets the halt onto X-Ray. So even if Team Chaser had to sustain that health bar to keep the contest going, there was absolutely no way that the Hammond could get that clean roll. And instead they had to retreat, and they've had to retreat so far that T1W already have the high ground. And once again, that's not where Rapita and Taro Cookie want to be working. They do not want to be trying to intrude past double shields.
Well, there's a little bit of a displacement with the Wrecking Ball engagement, but honestly, it's a little bit of a falling short ultimate by Late Young. X-Ray being able to at least give some assistance to that not-so-beneficial Flux. But when the Kinetic Grasp falls there to mitigate the damage, that is a quick cleanup here for T1W. And you're right, I mean, there's no real value with Taro Cookie and Aprita in these very small lack of sightline angles.
T1W doing such a good job of just mitigating the DPS's impact. They know how scary these DPS can be, and they're doing everything in their power. Even before the fight begins, they're occupying so much space. They've got an entire monopoly. Look at how they're positioned. 2 on the payload, 2 on the high ground, even the break there to make sure that X-Ray can't just get the knockoff so that Team Chaser can set their DPS up.
I mean, and even look at X-Ray. They've been running around this map, gathering health packs to try and even get back to a marginal health value to look for an engagement that's going to favor them. Bob's going to be tossed into this to try and get that numbers advantage, since X-Ray is really just trying to bob and weave in and out of these fights because there's not really been a sustaining factor on their health bar. Langsa has to force the Valkyrie here, finally fueling X-Ray on the front as the shield comes up to give some extra recovery. And Aprita now finally gets some dominant positioning overhead. Late Young gets that frontline engagement, and this will be Team Chaser holding at this checkpoint.
It's such a swing as well. You can see this is why T1W do not allow Aprita and Taro Cookie the space to actually set up. Because when they do, they are just such an unstoppable force. T1W, it's going to be a lot harder for them to be able to set that play up once more. Team Chaser, now that they know they really do have to contest the high ground, you can already see them making sure T1W, it's their turn to be kicked out of this ground.
Yeah, Night God having to play so cautiously. There's been a lot of that dynamite pressure, always having to play the corner. You still have X-Ray harassing, so Night God can't find that angle necessary with the Storm Arrows, attempting to get some decent damage, but again, there's no lockdown. You can't get close enough to raindrop so that you're stunned and locked into a position. Amplification Matrix comes out, but you've got the Flux to rise multiple members, and a double tap as well onto Jasper. Gets the shield out in time, doesn't have the Kinetic Grasp. You do have the follow potentially by X-Ray, but goes too far forward, and Jasper gets the takedown. Numbers advantage for T1W, looking to approach the back portion of this so that they can solidify their aggression over Team Chaser. The numbers dwindle. Keo does manage to find that Baptiste play, but there is no one to stick close to stop the payload, and now we've got 2 minutes for the final stretch.
T1W forcing Team Chaser onto the retreat, and that's where this team just are so strong with that Orisa being able to halt them back, get those stagger picks, more payload ground secured. T1W are going to be coming into this next fight with that supercharger, with that Dragon Team Chaser. They've got the hammer mines. They can drop them over the cart. They can buy themselves a little bit of time for that Bob to come through, but they have to find a kill first.
Pile drive from X-Ray, obliterated. Barely escapes around the corner, finally goes down by Akita, and that just should be enough. Literally a sliver remaining, under a meter. Night God getting the pickups, focusing all that remain down, and that is going to be a completion here with T1W taking 2 maps in a row and putting Team Chaser now on a map point. And I mean, whoo, T1W right now.
Whew, they are on absolute higher right now. You can just see that game sense coming into play, that knowledge of, okay, you're trying to run double hit scan, you're trying to set up a crossfire, you're trying to defend any sort of poke damage as we come through to secure yourself a nice easy pick, a nice easy ultimate cleaned up. Well, what if we just make sure that your crossfire is absolutely non-existent? You can't set up on the right side, you can't set up on the left side, you can't set up on the low ground, on the high ground. The only place you can set up right now is in your spawn room.
AKA the graveyard at this point. I mean, it's unbelievable how vastly different this matchup between these two looks than just the few weeks ago in week 4 leading up to this knockout phase. It's substantial. And this is something where now being on match point, Team Chaser, with all of the resources you mentioned, go before we even went into this series, it is just feeling like they are just coming up short constantly, fight after fight, and T1W has absolutely elevated themselves and really grabbed onto this momentum that we so emphasized.
Yeah, so for those of you not in the know, we regularly hold broadcast meetings where we go over sort of team storylines. We talk about what we're expecting from matches, what we're really going to be looking forward to. And the main thing that came up around Team Chaser was indeed how are they going to be able to live up to their reputation when a Predator is not on the Tracer and when suddenly they're having to find all of these resources to keep an extra person up. Because Tracer's gameplay, you don't have to worry about your team. You don't peel back, you don't have to come to your Ana so that she can build up to a nano boost or get damage boosted by a Mercy. All you have to do is have your cooldowns managed and be able to hit those health packs. That's how you keep yourself up and alive. So that means that Team Chaser, they had to worry about 5 people rather than constantly having to keep 6 up and alive. We're already seeing that there's a little bit more strain being put when suddenly a Predator is not playing solo away from the team, isn't just keeping themselves up and alive, and instead the supports are having to really pull into their resources and actually keep this DPS up, and that means resources removed not only from themselves, but also from the tanks. And you can really see that it's putting this team under a little bit of pressure.
The knees and the calves and quads are definitely shaking under the weight of that squat. So, with that being said, we're going to head to a brief break before seeing if they're able to rally, boost their strength, and be able to take a map back to work their way into a reverse sweep. It's not impossible, but it is definitely a mountain for them to climb. So don't go anywhere, friends, as we'll be seeing that third map coming up in just a moment. Welcome back, friends, as we are here to continue on to see if we're going to be on the T1W train or we take a stop for Team Chaser to take us the rest of the way. Like we said, it's going to be a long, grueling challenge here for Team Chaser, but it is something that can happen, but there has to be a lot of changes, Moxie, for this to truly start going into their favor.
One of the biggest is that their DPS has to have the space to be able to operate. We saw what happened, right? That fight, Point B, Junkertown, their defense, when Tara, Cookie, and Aprita actually had the floor to work with, they were coming in huge in the kill feed. But the second that T1W were able to just slam that door once again open and force this team full on into the retreat, that was when we saw the same sort of result that we'd been seeing all night pop up yet again. So I really am going to be keeping an eye on this. I hope that we get to see a Aprita come out onto the Echo purely because it's just a little bit harder to pin the Echo down, right? We saw in the last series how much you were able to get away with purely because of all of the mobility that is afforded to that DPS.
And as we do take a look at the next map, we will see if that Echo play will be vital and used going into Temple of Anubis. Platform 9 3/4 is here, and we're hoping that you're a wizard, Moxie, because I know that your prediction is in desperate need of a reverse sweep.
Hey, look, at the end of the day, I will still be ahead of Door, so that is my goal.
Yeah. Hey, even if you're losing on something, you gotta have goals for winning. And when you've got the goal to beat Door in prediction, I mean, you're already there. So, you're not feeling too bad about it in the long hauls. We do take a look at this defensive composition coming out by T1W. Night God gonna be here on that Echo play. Akita as well with the Ashe, something that we have already seen once before, and it's been played to perfection. And we'll see if they can do the same thing here to make this a match point.
Interestingly enough, Jasper actually going to be coming out on the Diva instead of the Sigma. And that does mean that you have a little bit more flexibility in how you can operate. We've seen that he is a very aggressive player who likes to move forward, and sometimes that can catch you out, especially if you don't have the rest of the team going to be coming for that dive with you. So having the Diva, having that mobility with the boosters, that access to go back and forth is definitely going to be allowing this guy to keep alive.
And it's interesting to see, too, because they've typically more so stuck with, at least on this type of map composition or this map type for Assault, it was more so looking to have potentially that dive composition or even with the double shield, so only going to rely solely on Hetlot with a lot of damage being pumped through these archways. Does get halted out onto Taro Cookie, still survives though, and again waiting just for an opportunity to press onto this middle high ground, but Night God's not going to let that free X-ray ball just continue to roll around.
And the Aprita actually going to be coming out onto the Reaper, but you can't get close enough at the moment, so you can't really find a lot of damage coming through. Team Chaser really relying on X-Ray to open things up, and so the longer T1W counter that ball play, the longer they just entirely stifle this composition.
Naika with literally a targeting system with that focusing beam, just getting so much damage onto X-Ray. If that continues to happen, it's going to be...
No.
Ooh, but there's a nice pickup, though, to try and get rid of Night God. That opens it up, and Akita has to fall back. Beautiful sleep, though, onto the Reaper. Goes in quickly to try and take him down, but there is some evasion still in the kit, alive and well, off cooldown for Aprita, and you will see Akita look to fall back and survive, because there's 2 DPS hyper-focusing.
Aprita going for a little bit of that self-sustain. He's actually even going to get the Nano Booster, really trying to charge up to that death level. They've been able to pin Physics down into the side room. No team there to peel for the Ana, and this is point A picked up for Team Chaser with a whole lot of snowball potential coming through. That is so close to those ultimates, but T1W, because they were able to get so much damage before Team Chaser really got that fight started, they've got ultimates themselves, and more importantly, they're going to have them a lot faster than Chaser.
Now with this over 5-minute time bank, there is a lot for Chaser to work with. They've got an ult economy consistently building up, only Kyo expending the nano boost, but there's still a lot on the return side defensively. Dragon Strike gonna get eaten! Jasper times it perfectly. Hetlot hit by the Bionade, has to fall back, trying to survive, but goes down by Taro Cookie. The arrow is tried and true. The res is there to stabilize for T1W, and that's the first of many more fights that they're going to need to hold on to this to prevent this second point from being captured.
And here comes the attempt at the stagger picks. Even though they haven't picked anyone actually up in the kill feed, T1W have done enough to delay, but the ultimates that were so close have now come online, and Team Chaser, they're going to be relying once again on X-Ray to come through with these Hammer Mines, trying to stifle a little bit of that movement coming out from T1W. But again, that Hammer is going to find so much contest in the form of the CC.
I mean, a lot of low health values here for T1W. Very discomforting feeling with the self-destruct in the back coming through by Jasper. Does manage to get one, but there's still the numbers advantage for Team Chaser. Aprita down below having the Death Blossom and also getting rid of Hetlot. The res comes through onto Taro Cookie, so they do get the full 6, and they have the Valkyrie still continuing to build. Nano onto the Bob here to get some damage for Aprita. Has the Death Blossom still continuing to pump out damage. Does go to sleep. Dreamland for Aprita, but I don't think there's going to be enough to shut Aprita down, especially when they have still the evasion online. Taro Cookie picked off as the respawn advantage goes in favor of T1W. Not out of this yet, and a tick has not still been obtained by Team Chaser.
Hetlot coming back onto that Winston is allowing so much ultimate charge for physics, as well as that mobility being put to good use for the stall potential. And Team Chaser, they're losing their tanks. They've lost 2 meaty health pools. Not only that, but 2 meaty health pools for their supports to be able to charge ultimates off of. They don't have any way of actually picking up these kills with Aprita going down, and what was an absolutely beautiful push coming out from this team is very quickly just completely gone to absolute dust. And it was such a long one too. They put all of their hopes, they put all of the ultimates that they had in line, and we're going to be seeing a little bit of the swaps come through.
A lot of resilience from T1W on this defensive side, taking advantage of every minuscule amount. Akita has to drop down since that X-ray positioning up top is going to prevail. But now this side angle, looking to potentially take this side room, and still getting some decent pressure from late in the front with the Zarya. And Taro Cookie has to be extremely careful with Hetlot diving in now onto the Winston, opting to swap to this dive composition to utilize it. Already has almost a Primal Rage going into it. The duplicate comes through. It's going to be a Night God duplicate onto the Reaper. Still getting a lot of value in the back. Oh my goodness, like swarming bees just cleaning house. The Death Blossom to secure the second support goes down. And now 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Half the bank of time dwindled already.
Yeah, not coming up in the kill feed as that Reaper, but chunking enough members of Team Chaser low enough for the rest of the team. And not only that, you expended 1 duplicate and bought yourself 5 other ultimates on the side of T1W. That is absolutely huge, because now they have the time bank to just cycle through. And Team Chaser, having swapped up their composition so much, they've had to just eco-push, wait for ultimates to be charged up, but Late Young is not able to get properly close enough to do damage, so it doesn't have the grab.
Got now the minefield laid up front. Aprita once again gets the nano boost. This is the 3rd fight that this Death Blossom has not been used from Aprita. Just being very hesitant on utilizing it to try and find the engagement. A lot of ultimates have been forced out now by T1W. Jasper attempts to get back into the mech, finally doesn't get any takedowns with it, but this is a chance now. Aprita has to find value with this Death Blossom. Night God already takes down Taro Cookie, and Aprita still holding on to this. Can't find any valuable picks. Langsa has to force the rally to survive onto this. The Death Blossom comes out, but not able to get anything. The Bionade is there to completely mitigate it, but even with the Bionade, you actually still see Team Chaser persevere. The respawn is going to be a tall task for T1W to get back onto this, and this could actually just be it.
Well, Raindrop is actually going to go on to the Lucio. Jasper trying to touch the point is going to get stunned up completely. T1W know if they want to come back into this, that nano boost from physics has got to be there, but it's a lot harder to get an Ana back in when space has already been taken away from her, and you can see Team Chase just forcing themselves through every single member from T1W that shows up.
I mean, Aprita going down is a benefit. There was so much value. Akita trying to round the inner side, finds the support and eliminate it. But Late Young on this Diva, still returning, removing the Lucio. No longer able to ride the inner wall, keeping this into an overtime. Hetlot just misses the jump, and that's still 42 seconds on the time bank for Team Chaser to complete this map of Temple of Anubis.
But cast your mind back to when Team Chaser picks up point A. They had 5 minutes on the clock, and they finished point B with 42 seconds left. T1W did such a good job of just cycling through those ultimates, of forcing Team Chaser to swap up that composition. And touching on that point, we saw Team Chaser swap up that composition, and suddenly things just went so right for this team. The stubbornness that we'd seen portrayed through a little bit of this series fell away, and we could really see this team thriving. And fingers crossed, going forward, they continue to stick to that mentality.
Chaser is like onions. You peel away the layers of their, just desire to not change, and it's starting to make way. I was trying to do a Shrek onion comment, but it really didn't work.
You just made me hungry again.
But onions?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of onions. You know, they
Yeah,
got
you
the
caramelize some onions.
I
It's
mean,
like,
even my producer's getting on my case about this whole onion line. I mean, I only can do onions if they're grilled or if they're like sautéed in a pan. I'm not okay
yeah,
with like
pan fry, a
like
little bit of sugar in the mix, so good. But
I mean, that's fair. You have eaten onions live on stream, if I remember correctly, for a charity that we did.
yeah,
So that was a
red
long time
onion,
ago.
bro.
Yeah, as our
Cried
producer is in
so
disgust
much
right now.
afterwards.
With the doors opening here, we're not gonna. We're gonna have this now open up. Team Chaser on the defense, keeping a Prita with the Reaper, Taro Cookie on the Ashe, and we're gonna see if now T1W can get just as much of a swift take here on this first point.
Yeah, Team Chaser opting in for that defensive double bubble, trying to split Hetlot away from the supports. That's when the Arista is going to become a lot more vulnerable, but you can see Raindrop just really stubbornly knows that that's what the Winston is aiming for and refusing to move from their side.
Aprita gets overwhelmed in the corner, could not evade, overwhelmed, numbers advantage, focusing beam onto X-Ray. This should be a quick cleanup. Lightning fast time bank should be here for T1W to press, and they should feel really confident about this.
Well, I mean, there's good news for Team Chaser right now, and that's this fight went so quickly that T1W, they've only got 2 ultimates going to be coming up online for the next one if Team Chaser don't want to contest this and put their health bars into question, because then that snowball potential becomes a lot scarier when you let T1W sink their teeth into more health bars.
Oh, you can see a little bit of damage still coming out. Taro Cookie just still hidden in the back line, just waiting. Finally goes down. Nightguy gets the pickup, approaching the ultimates now. And honestly, this is a huge momentum with those 2 extra picks on the DPS line.
Yeah, Team Chaser trying to find any sort of organization right now as T1W know that they can just move on to the site and set this shield up. The anti-hit is going to be absolutely beautiful from Kyo, though. Forces the team away, and that sets up the stage for X-Ray to come through and finish them off.
Fight win. Fight win by that nade. Unbelievable. X-Ray just cleaving the front line with that Tesla cannon damage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if just in that fight alone you'd have been able to build up a primal, but T1W, they've still got 4 ultimates, soon to be 5 when Akira hits that bob coming up. And Team Chaser, they do have a lot of sustain, they do have a lot of stall and a lot of delay as well, but you cannot allow this composition from T1W, this Arista, to get set up on that point. Otherwise it's going to be so hard to boot that shield off.
Oh, and Akita getting the takedown onto X-Ray, diving in. The damage is far too much, and the Primal couldn't come out. Kyo drops the Nano to make sure that they get that extra damage potential. Also trying to generate towards the rally with that opportunity with the Reaper damage. It's not being enough. Hopefully going to give enough sustain for the rest of the team as you do have X-Ray back on point. Taro Cookie eliminating the counter Bob as you also have the supercharger being brought out of this fight on Hetlot. With this single tick already obtained, even if you don't have T1W take this point outright, the fact is that they are chipping away at it. They've gotten 1/3. Here's the cleanup now for Team Chaser, but they've not lost this fight for nothing.
Yeah, 1 tick picked up. A lot of ultimates invested from T1W, and there's the stagger onto the Baby Diva. Can you imagine if Jasper got a remake kill?
Oh no, I would have lost it if that happened. But
oh, man, just baits everyone in. All of Team Chaser cluster around, the mech comes down and insta-kills all of them. Well, it's not going to happen. Team Chaser still holding on to this point. Akita's actually going to be going over to the Kree, so that now you have even more against X-Ray, who just has not been having a fun time going for these jumps. Yes, you've allowed Kyo to hit these nano boosts, but you put yourself, your team, away from the tank, away from that sustain that went in the forwards.
X-Ray goes in for the engagement. Nice coverage. Playing a little bit more reserve here, though. Not fully committing when in the open, because we've already seen X-Ray get punished twice for that. As Akita looks, as you said, with that McCree, trying to find a backline angle, generating... Oh, but another Bionade comes through, putting Raindrop and Akita in a very difficult position as Night God has to go for that elevated position to try and find some decent damage behind that shield. X-Ray, though, will get a lot still here in this corner. Hetlot vulnerable and left alone. So many divided for Team Chaser to conquer, and will hold now with 3 minutes still in the time bank for T1W to get back into this.
And that's the exact positioning that X-Ray really wants these fights to take place. Gets it absolutely spot on and is able to build up the primal with just so much cleave coming through in that room. Team Chaser, even though they committed a graviton a couple fights ago, 49% already built up for late young. And they have the ultimates. If they have restraint with them, they can cycle through and burn this clock down to a minute and below. But T1W, you know, they've already got 1 tick. They're banking up. They know the second that Team Chaser start losing these tanks, more specifically start losing these supports, that's when this defense is really going to fall apart for this team.
Nice early damage there by Taro Cookie. The Dynamite still finds a pickup. These executions right now have been really on point for Team Chaser. I'm really impressed.
What's changed as well, because instead of one person just going in and trying to pinch them at the back, they're actually playing the buddy system. They're making sure that it's not just a Soul Reaper or a Soul Winston. And because you have that one person to fall back onto, that little bit more support coming out from this team, you find so much more reward. The T1W have silently and slowly been just accruing these ultimates, and Jasper's even actually able to get the mech back. Doesn't have to swap off the hero. And this is when T1W are really going to want to come for this. Are they going to take a separate approach? And it seems like, yeah, they've learned they're not going to go for that side room on the left. They know that if physics falls a little bit too early, that's push done.
Now with Akita looking to try and make sure that there is a securance. Seeing the Death Blossom come through overhead. Beautiful shield. Nobody taken out just yet, but Late Young finds Raindrop. The D-Mech comes through as well. You've only really forced out 2 ultimates here on Team Chaser, so this should be T1W falling back, but they've also committed 2 of their own and are going to find the short end of this engagement, with Team Chaser still having the ultimate economy advantage.
Well, Terakuki did put the bob in, so you don't have that easy button for point contest. But Team Chaser, they've still got so many ultimates to play around with, and with 59 seconds left on the clock, T1W starting to look a bit less comfortable. They want to be on the site. That's where this shield is going to be able to set up and actually find any sort of value. Just the getting in part, and you can see Team Chaser just hounding them, not letting them have that space. They figured out the Orisa is vulnerable on the move, and they really are just nipping at his heels.
Jasper has to find some serious value on the self-destruct going into this. Looking to try and peek the corner. Has engagement up top, though, by Aprita. Trying to dislodge them with the boosters from Jasper. Doesn't really get as much opportunity to do so, as you do have Aprita fall back. 20-some seconds remaining here, as the ultimate's still... I mean, honestly, it's got to be soon. You have to get a pick coming up, and Late Young's going to use this grab, too, to try and just isolate all up front.
I mean, if you can get an eat from Jasper, already we've seen a Dragon Strike be gobbled up. If you can eat this Graviton, that's huge, because you negate it instantly. And you can see Late Young's just waiting for it, posturing the D.Va's away from the team. If you turn around, the grab is there, this Matrix!
Oh, it's going to be dropped into the back onto the supports. Hetlot does take down Late Young, but a flanking Night God Death Blossom is there. Primal gets 2. Numbers advantage still in favor of T1W as they press onto the point. The respawn advantage is still there for Team Chaser as Bob is unleashed. The Omnic Butler comes out for the assistance, and it should be enough to sustain, but there's already 2 ticks. They stepped off of it. Team Chaser coming back in with the spawns. The staggers are there. T1W is not going to be able to get the third. And you have Team Chaser starting to climb, finding a camping zone on Mount Everest, and they are on their way for this reverse sweep, Moxie.
You could just tell when that camera was following Late Young, just frothing at the mouth, watching that D.Va mech going, okay, is defense matrix used? Is defense matrix used? Is defense matrix used? And then the second that the D.Va flies to that point, that instant shift in focus, that the D.Va isn't going to be there, isn't going to be close enough, had to use the boosters to be able to use that mobility to get the touch, and suddenly that backline is completely unprotected from the ultimate, and from there it all just spirals downhill for T1W.
I mean, the dominoes just fell perfectly into place. The puzzle pieces, however you want to call it, because the time was dwindling, it was really only going to be the D.Va play by Jasper to break the overtime. And that was the window of opportunity for the grab to come out and start leading that into their favor. There was still good contention by T1W with the Death Blossom in the back, also finding the pickup from Hetlot, but the fact that it was you playing catch-up since the beginning of that engagement, you could never have T1W recover.
I mean, not only that, but you'd exhausted so much of your main utilities in the Graviton to keep yourself up and alive. You'd lost your players, you'd lost so much of your backline that sustain. And D.Va is very good for contesting, but she's also very good for hitting. She is just a walking hitbox. And so for Team Chaser, they know their respawns are far closer, even if they step off the point and let one tick slide over to the side of T1W, they're still going to be able to regroup and properly contest for that final and really important tick that counts.
I mean, and just this dive on the sidebar before they finally changed their method from T1W was such a huge time crunch. Like, it was over 2 minutes that had been spent attempting to just constantly take that side angle. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more of an adaptation earlier in where they look to engage to try and just completely change up their point of entry to put Team Chaser into an unfavorable position. But, you know, it allows Team Chaser to start getting their morale boosted. They've taken the map away. They're not out of this yet. And it looks like we are going to be entering onto Numbani as the next map selection here.
Well, it's definitely going to be leaning into the favor of T1W, right? They lost the map, so they get to pick this one, and you can see exactly what they're trying to do. They are trying to bait Team Chaser, paint a target, nice bright red on the high ground, and say, hey, look, is this not space you want to dive onto? Because we know T1W are confident in terms of being able to handle Team Chaser's dive. We've seen it in the past 2 maps of Nepal and Junkertown. The second that they have that crowd control set up, it is just so hard for Team Chaser to be able to break through.
And as we see Team Chaser opting to go on the defensive side, it will be their selection first since T1W chose Numbani. We will have that combination of the Diva and the Winston here with Aprita on the Reaper. And I'm liking the fact that you're going to see this Reaper Ashe combination from the two to really look for those engagements. But the Lanxa Brigitte is going to be interesting and how well that's going to be. More so just trying to keep Kyo alive.
Yeah, because Lei Young is going to be diving with X-Ray, which means that you can still have the Zarya support your Winston, but she does it from the backline. She only has to bubble. That means that you can still turn around and help your Ana, but because Lei Young is going to be away from the team 9 times out of 10, Lancer is almost required to come on to this Brigitte to keep Kyo up and alive if the dive does come through. But the thing is, it's not going to be a dive that you have to worry about for Kyo's sake. It's going to be Night Guard just trying to find any sort of opening on this Echo, and that's actually forcing Lei Young to play away from the Winston and just defense matrix the supports as much as you can.
Prita getting very low, does barely diverge away from that as the sticky bomb comes through onto Taro Cookie. Abandoning ship up top to try and recover and wait for the supports to give assistance. A lot of low health values here from Team Chaser, but they're getting topped up for the time being as Kyo now big focus. Night God continuing to pump in that sticky bomb damage to get that ultimate generated so lightning fast here, just far surpassing any others. X-Ray goes down, finally reaching that below 50% health, picking up one target after another. This is a very dominant engagement after a slow early understanding of what Team Chaser is doing with their comp.
It's a return to form of Junkertown. You can see the second that T1W download the position of the DPS and where it is on the high ground, they're more than fine to take it slow. They just don't want the DPS to be on that high ground. And the second that they actually managed to push them off, the second that Kyo was forced onto the sidelines, can't play support, really, and the tanks just stuffed up behind that, that's when T1W properly move on to the point, properly say, hey, if you want to contest us, come right down and play. We're more than happy to. And it's actually going to force so many swaps coming from Team Chaser. They're going for the Hammond of X-Ray, Lei Young onto the Sigma and Aprita onto the McCree, just so you can try and keep a little bit of the damage coming out from Night God and Akire on this Ashe in check before the fight properly breaks out.
Now going up to the high ground, looking to try and potentially counter, but is aware of that double hit scan. Ooh, there we go. Night God eliminated on the Echo, which is exactly what you have Team Chaser needing, but the res is instantly there by Raindrop to turn this around. Nano boost on the McCree play, continuing to get some backline presence and try to force back Hetlot with that flashbang. That should be Team Chaser able to sustain with a nice compositional switch to try and really focus down Night God.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous from Team Chaser, seeing that T1W, because they wanted that res, were just a little bit more vulnerable. The Nanoboost immediately coming onto Aprita means that even if the bullets connect, if it's only one, if it's only two, it still guarantees a kill. And Team Chaser are more than happy to just expend as much as they can to get this ground back. That was when they were the most comfortable. That was when they recovered on Anubis. But T1W not out of this just yet. They managed to get the McCree, and that's immediately going to bolster their confidence.
Yeah, a lot of damage onto the front line, but Lei Young gets a huge shield from that kinetic grasp with everything coming in from the sticky bombs and the follow-up damage. Nightcut has to bail around the corner, but cannot evade fast enough. Just getting completely popped out of the sky. As Lei Young, again, really on this front line, pulling a little bit of a chapter out of Jasper's Sigma book and holding quite well.
Holding extremely well, 88% to that Sigma Flux, and Team Chaser have so many ultimates that they can really use to delay T1W. And that's something we have seen this defense pull out time and time again. Just burn the clock down, force T1W to wait around. And even for Jasper, who wants to try and open things up with a Diva Bomb to reroute Team Chase, it's going to be so hard to actually successfully land it with Leighton playing on this Sigma. That shield is so mobile that you have to time that cooldown perfectly.
Minefield coming out by X-Ray does get headlock here. Again, really, really early takedowns is causing so much dismay and discomfort for T1W. Perplexed and having to fall back, needing to regroup. The aggression comes through, and just Team Chaser, insult to injury.
Just pushing. Every little bit that T1W gives them, they take just so much more out of that clock. And yeah, you pinned it down perfectly, Rich. Team Chaser are always the one initiating. They never let T1W into a spot where they're comfortable enough. Even now, Akine can't be with the team because they know that the Hammond is around, that the Kirchgen has to be there to try and stop the pile drive. And once again, more seconds brought off the clock. More time for Team Chaser to set themselves up to hit the ultimate first.
Flux gonna be able to lead into it. Does have the chance of getting Hatlock, but the Fortify was there to drop from the ultimate. His Night God looks for a Flux of their own, trying to find somebody that's worthwhile, as you do get Kyo in the back. Oh, actually, no, it was Taro Cookie. Couldn't manage to get the takedown. You have that focusing beam eliminating Leighton on the front, so you're solely relying on X-Ray, who's just causing mayhem in the back. Beautiful sleep there on the Orisa for the time being to try and at least stop that charge and prevent the shield from getting back up, allowing both Taro Cookie and Lanksa to hold on to this. Minute and 33 seconds to go, and this is some great defensive positioning so close to this checkpoint.
Ooh, Headlock falls down, Raindrop alongside. There goes a lot of sustain for T1W. And there's nothing really to stop Taro Cookie from just getting to turn around to put it in tow and actually line up those shots. They've got the space to work with as Jasper is gonna take a little bit of an easy ride off the edge. Get back with the rest of the team, but Taro Cookie, once again, just doing what we've seen Team Chaser do every part of this map. A little bit of damage, a little bit of annoyance, forcing T1W to wait just a little bit longer. Until suddenly, they just don't have the time to work with. They have to panic, they have to go for that last final push. And Team Chase just looking to initiate once more, not allowing the setup to come through.
I mean, that was a big dynamite, too. Landing onto 3, getting that damage. So get closer to this Bob. It's going to be 5 ultimates online here for Team Chaser, which is a stacked amount to compete against T1W. Akita, though, gets rid of X-Ray. Focusing beam almost takes down Taro Cookie, and you can even see Bob going to get tossed out just as an insurance policy to hold with this 26 seconds to go. Jasper, almost eliminated, does get topped up by the healers. That kinetic grasp was critical with the shielding to try and survive. But a Prita up top finds an angle, gets rid of Raindrop, and is absolutely finding this high ground vantage point that's going to completely dwindle the health value. But nice counter pick by Akita. But oh, both tank lines are down. That should be it. T1W is not going to be able to recover from this.
Yep, they're not going to be able to get to touch that card in time. They're not running the Hammond, they're not running the Lucio. The overtime bar starts and very quickly stops. Team Chaser, they recover so well on the second point. It's so similar to Anubis. The second that they dig their heels into the ground and decide this is where we don't allow T1W past, that payload stops and it stays stopped, and you really do have to wonder, was that the game plan all along? They knew it would be a little bit harder to properly defend point A with how open it could be, but the second you take it to streets, you have the high ground open to you. You have all of these angles where T1W have to cross that corner and go into the Ash's crosshair. So much damage coming through, so much opportunity for that early first pick, that Team Chaser were more than content to just hold T1W right there.
Do we find ourselves reaching a map 5? It occurred once before. Maybe not in the score order that we've seen, but Team Chaser is in a prime position to actually bring this to a map 5, to another control point, but that doesn't mean they're out of it yet either. They have not been successful on a control map back-to-back against T1W, so with this 20 seconds to go, we take a look at the defensive position, going to have Akita with that Ash play and Night God on the Echo, and they're actually still going to keep this Hetlot with Jasper Orisa Diva combination.
Well, Nimbani is one of the homes of Dive, and Hetlot's Orisa is so annoying. The X-Ray to deal with that shield, with that halt. And already you can see Nygaard just getting a little bit of early damage going through it. But just coming in onto the Reaper, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to get nice and close without taking so much poke damage. But they want to put a little bit of pressure on the point, force T1W to fight in these different pockets, and that's where the dive is going to thrive. And you're able to separate this team and get that cleave going through.
X-Ray just getting a quick dive up top to see if they can get some intel on exactly where that DPS is positioned, whether it's that further back corridor or up close around the edge. Does go in for the dive. X-Ray very overwhelmed. Was not below the 50% health, so you didn't see Nygaard get the advantage. Taro Cookie instantly follows through after Akita gets low, and Nygaard spamming damage from on high. Can't manage to keep presence. This is going to be a quick 2 cap, now the 3rd. But there is a contention coming out here by Jasper, just drawing this out as long as possible. But honestly, T1W just got completely schooled on this initial point.
Well, they are starting to come back through, but they need to get that. Sorry, I didn't know what.
Oh my goodness. All right, well.
No one touched. And we start our journey into Streets phase. And Team Chaser's journey towards redemption continues another chapter. They've got the nano
Charlie
boost.
Niner? Charlie Niner? 0 days!
Guys. 0
As our
days.
prod yells in our ears, it's just because it's so true. He knows all. He knows all.
He does know all. I'd laugh at that jokes too. It makes us feel a little bit better even when the comedy falls flat. As T1W's defense feels a little bit flat right now. They've got a couple of ultimates. They need to stem the bleeding. Got to start off with the duplicate onto the Reaper, but Nygaard is just camped at the door. Has to use the Ray Bomb to find any sort of pick.
I mean, falling flat is an understatement right now. I mean, Taro Cookie going to take advantage of Raindrop. You can already see this box of victory here. The Primal Rage up top dislodges physics. No room for comfort. The Arisa's going on a friggin' flight path. They don't have any wings. They're not any sort of Pegasus, but I mean, Team Chaser? All right, friends. I said, you know, we're going to take it home 3-0, and I'm finding myself eating my words because Team Chaser has absolutely flipped this on its head. And Moxie, you are now looking at an opportunity of taking the lead amongst all casters in our prediction, which is a scary but rewarding thought.
I mean, don't immediately jump the gun though, because we've seen Team Chaser improve. We've seen Team Chaser adapt. What we have not seen Team Chaser do back to back on both of their matches against U1W is win the next map type that is coming up. Team Chaser have got to be able to take a control point.
Yep. I mean, it's a tall task. I mean, they've already managed to pull this to a map 5 for a reverse sweep. So, oh my goodness. What a dart! What a sleep dart. All right, that right there. That was clutch. Highlight.
I mean, just been having an absolute monstrous time. The anti-nades coming out, the sleep darts, the nano boosts. This team is really working in synergy, right? We talked about, well, are Team Chaser going to be able to provide the resources? Are they going to be able to support a Pritter when he's playing with the team rather than away from the team? And a big answer to that is Kyo, because Kyo has been on fire.
And hopefully there's enough gasoline to fuel that fire for the last map, which again is going to be Oasis. We head to Control, where we will find out if you are going to see T1W continue their dominance in a Control map, or is it going to be Team Chaser making most of our casters outside of you and LaFon eating our words in what we believe to be the victor for this second series of today. And, you know, honestly, we've acknowledged that this is a challenge for Team Chaser. Ultimately, we know exactly what direction they need to go in, and it's just going to be all on their shoulders to finally come through in the end of this, utilize their resources, and take this map.
Yeah, for Team Chaser, they need to win first fight. I really can't state this enough. We know how strong they can play when they're in control of that space, when they're actually able to delay T1W and go for those very aggressive early peaks, set these traps for T1W to walk into. But all of that is only possible if you are in control of the space when the fight starts. So for Team Chaser, it doesn't end all on the first fight, but a lot of it rests on the shoulders of it.
I mean, we've seen statistically that, especially with this map, if you take this first round, you have over a 70% opportunity of claiming this map as a whole. So this first round even is just so critical to piggyback off of it as both teams look to reach onto this point very quickly. You have Akita with the McCree looking to continue getting some damage. Flashbang waiting for those shields to drop if getting close enough. But with Jasper already getting a Prita taken down on this 76, that's going to lead into this first point take.
And this is what Team Chase were really worried about. This is what's been the thorn in this team's existence all series. T1W taking away the high ground from their DPS, lessening the impact. That they don't have that attention, those two cross angles to really pin this team between. And that hole is just going to make Team Chaser wait yet again.
It even forced out the kinetic grasp, attempting to eat it, but since it came out late, you no longer have that for mitigation. Late Young's still getting a decent shield from it regardless, trying to sustain on the front side, but it's already almost 25%, a quarter of the way there for T1W. You have this numbers advantage, at least on the point for Team Chaser, finding an exploit onto Akita, a little bit separated and divided from the front line for coverage, but this is still drawn out. T1W is going to look to get as much percentage as possible, even if they lose this fight. The numbers continue to dwindle with Nika looking for any sort of potential takedown to just get to that duplicate to carry into this next fight.
And this is Team Chaser setting into play what has been their strength, going for these different angles, pincering T1W in between the gaps. When you only have one shield, especially when it's as static as an Orissa's, well, it's not going to be moving, it isn't going to be protecting that back line. Team Chaser now in control of the point, they still have 50% to catch up on. But this is when we've seen this team composition thrive. They have to be able to keep T1W from getting the space to drop this Deadeye though, otherwise all that they've worked so hard for is gone in seconds.
Shield already taking quite a bit of damage. There's the Deadeye, all gonna tuck behind the pillar to hide. Oh, the sleep dart! Alright, we've seen it before, and we have seen it now again. Bionade lands, Keo comes out on top, hitting Hetlot and Night God, and Aprita just lays waste with a tactical visor, cleaning up T1W.
Oh, the waiting as well. The fact that Q was like, okay guys, I've got this. Pops out of a corner, hits the sleep dart, cancels out the Deadeye, but they don't move in until T1W are on the point. And that means that they're not going to be able to escape that nano tac visor. And that means the fight goes on long enough for Team Chaser to surpass T1W's percentage.
And now Night God looking to try and find an angle. Aprita has to be cautious. It's a little overwhelmed. Going to be able to top off there quick enough so that they can continue to maintain that upper position. Night God, though, having a real hard time with how well Aprita's been playing this. Sticky Bomb's not landing. Raindrop's already down. You're solely relying on length, so that's going to leave Night God vulnerable with a sliver of hell. Even the self-destruct is forced out because of the D-Mech on so much damage, hyper-focused to Jasper, that this minefield in the corner, up the stairway, going to be really challenging to try and evade as you've got Night God still with the focusing beam, able to get rid of X-Ray. Health values low. Jasper just hoping for a heal as Physics is also overwhelmed. This is still 90% in climbing for Team Chaser, and they're in such a great spot.
T1W though are going to be coming in with ultimates, but Akita can't use the Deadeye, can't even get any percentage, but Britta with the tag fire takes the opportunity. Q provides with the antidote onto the Kree and goes to absolute town. This is a Team Chaser united. Rich, this is a Team Chaser that could win control.
Oh my goodness. It's like my prediction is flashing in front of my eyes right now. All of us, mostly. I mean, let's be real. What a play on the 76. I mean, seriously, that was absolutely unreal. And huge agency to that is Keo.
Yeah.
Big driving force in those fights.
Well, one thing that we'll get to see, though, is whether or not Team Chaser can survive Night God's May. Because once again, they've opted to go for a very slow-moving composition, and once again, Hetlot's Orisa Halt can make that just a little bit more brutal. And Team Chase have got to be able to see that in play, and they cannot let themselves get separated as they did on Village.
Brita already taking the long way around, looking to see if they can get some sightlines, since you do have T1W taking the smaller corridor, very low on physics, almost limited. Has to be so careful of that not happening. With still some decent sustain, you got the accretion out, getting a nice stun onto Hetlot. No real value just yet. That early first pick is going to be critical. Nice halt over the wall. Kinetic Grasp from Late Young. Going to get a nice shield as you've got that aggression coming forward by Night God. Looking for the slow and the crown control. On to Team Chaser. Can't get the pickup. Keo and X-Ray finds the early 2. And T1W are being absolutely overrun by Team Chaser. They have rallied. They have their morale boosted. And they are feeling confident to get this reverse sweep.
They were looking for that May. You could see them dancing just around that point, not wanting to probably commit, not wanting to get walled off. But the fact that they're split, that even if the wall comes out, they have enough angles. Even Kyo on this map has the movement to just use the exo boost to be able to boost past it and still get the heals onto the tank.
Now with, again, Nightcod getting very low, almost having to force out that cryo freeze as the damage comes in quickly. Immortality field is there, but it is not enough. T1W coming in with a vengeance to switch this back, not allowing it to reach that 50% marker. 30 is still a worthwhile value, but instantly going to take it back.
T1W going to be looking for those stagger picks as well. The Halt already going to be pulling the McCree. The wall means that the Predator's exit is stopped. And Team Chaser, it's a little bit of their own medicine. T1W finally getting that stall to come through. But it does mean that Team Chaser just hitting those ultimates so soon in this next fight. And it's going to be so impactful. Which of these Orysas is going to be able to get that juicier halt? Team Chaser playing a little bit closer together. If Hetler pulls one of them, it will grab all of them. And you can see Team Chaser know this. They're already splitting.
Yep, and you've got that supercharger in the corner. Now you've got some angles. Taro Cookie instantly going to recognize its positioning. Attempted to take it down, but can't manage to do so. Finally does. Taro Cookie swapping onto Jasper with the low health value, even though they left the damage up. Aprita gets another. The Dragon Strike underneath gets the 2. The DPS lineup on Team Chaser are absolutely on friggin' fire, and they're going to take it back.
And T1W, for this team, yes, they've got 2 ultimates, but those 2 ultimates require space and time to be able to set up. And Team Chaser are not going to stand quietly while they get yanked into the Sigma Flux. Kyo has got the Immortality Field, and you know that Batista's making sure it's there on time for when that comes through.
Oh, the halt with potentially the Deadeye going to gain value, but manages to escape. Akita does get that pickup onto the Flux combination to make sure that there is nowhere that support can escape to, flying high in the sky. This will be a swap back over. Still some percentage gain, and you have the few remaining individuals from Team Chaser, but because they were actually stuck on the wall, you see it swap to T1W and a sound barrier from Raindrop to sustain through it all.
Light God holding onto that Blizzard as well is going to make Team Chaser's chances of getting into the snake fight just a little bit colder as Aprita is able to combat roll this time. Will not face the stall, and you can see Team Chaser already moving forward. Kyo even having to use the Immortality Field to guarantee that the entire team makes it out alive. And that's an investment T1W are more than happy to accept, as Jasper is already 79% and climbing to that next Sigma Flux.
I mean, and you have to keep eye on the Blizzard going to toss it. See if they can lock down multiple individuals. The Orisa there up front with the Fortify trying to block the damage. A side-angled Dragon Strike manages to find Akita. So the numbers are in favor of Team Chaser to swap this back. The Blizzard doesn't get the value necessary. Jasper holds on to this Flux, and you've got Hetlot with the Supercharger. So that will lead into this next fight, but this is just a back-and-forth grind.
Raindrop, he wanted to use that speed boost to try and get the entire team through into that Blizzard on top of Team Chaser to probably capitalize on it. But they lost the Lucio, they lost that sustain, and Team Chaser still in control at this point. Forces Night God onto the Hanzo. They're just trying to get through any sort of pick, any bit of this double shield they can break, but that is a beautiful application matrix, and this Orisa means open season as Team Chaser pile into the side room and start to equalize percentage as we head into final fight.
No! It's had the flay! Langsa gets the boop back on Raindrop. Nobody's gonna be able to touch. You're actually gonna have Team Chaser at the point claiming this in the end. There is no ability to touch. And what a turnaround for Team Chaser to now come back after control map after control map of losses against T1W. They not only claim the control, they claim the reverse sweep, allowing them to move through this second knockout stage. I mean, you gotta feel. Just gonna bow down. Oh wait, you're this side. You're this side. I'm gonna bow down. You leading right now. We all wrong. We all wrong. That's happening right now. Like, okay.
You've gotta trust in the owl level coaching. Like, you could see that was our level strategy. The fact that they would allow T1W into the space, that they would lay those foundations, they would make sure every single possible exit was completely trapped off. They would wait for anti-nades to come through, for ultimates to begin, and then they would go in for the counters to make sure that just that loss wasn't just a kill feed loss, it was an ultimate charge loss as well. And then the cycle would just continue anew, every little thing that they could. Burn the clock down, make sure the ultimates weren't charged up in time, make sure the Lucio can't get the touch with the flail. Team Chaser on absolute fire.
I mean, what a moment for that flail. Just to knock the Lucio completely off the map, couldn't get to that exterior architecture to try and recover. I mean, honestly, at that point, because you're thinking the Lucio's going to touch it, we're fine. We're not going to need to swap anything. We don't need to go to those heavy movement characters. And it's like, well, that's it. Literally stripped away in the end. And huge props as we take a look at the type of day that we have had going through this bracket. We can see that it was First Fabulous Fighters falling to Bilibili, dropping into the losers bracket, and the team T1W that we did not foresee for at least most of us is now in the losers bracket, where you can hold your head high and feel proud, both you and LaFawn. There it is, the bracket, as we are going into tomorrow and Friday. It's just going to be one heck of a week for Chinese contenders.
Absolutely. And I mean, I get to feel not only smug because I'm beating all of you, but I'm also beating you doubly.
You have only further extended your lead. I made the whole comment about platform 9 3/4, and I can tell you right now, you have basically pulled the trolley into your cart area, and you're just basking in the sweets right now. Let's be completely honest. That's how I feel, at least for you pulling ahead, as we'll take a look at tomorrow's schedule. It is not going to be us bringing you the action, but it will be Bilibili versus Team Chaser, with First Fabulous Fighters in the losers bracket against T1W, and that's going to be brought to you by both Labosco and Thibble, who we are really excited to have them on board, getting this second day underway. And again, going to be starting still at that same time at the 6 p.m. PDT, and the second one closer to that 8 p.m. PDT. And you know, Moxie, I know I don't get the luxury of being able to cast with you, since I know Dor is your co-caster, but it's always a pleasure, and I hope that for those that were looking for, like I said, that youthful dashing Dor, that I was able to at least fill as the boomer.
I still think you should have got like a Super Saiyan haircut cut out. Just posted it
I
over
know.
the camera. I'm sure no one would have been able to tell the difference.
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, I should have just shaved. I would have looked like a youthful baby face trying to do what I can. Not saying that I'm old. We're just gonna not even talk about that. But seriously though, it's been an absolute pleasure. And for all of those that have been tuning in and supporting, it has been fantastic to bring you today's broadcast. Like I said, we do have games tomorrow and Friday as well, two series each. And I mean, it's gonna be exciting, Moxie. And like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. So for those of you at home, we look to see you tomorrow. So take care, happy gaming, and it's going to be an exciting day too.